My friend says caffeine's a drug. I said, oh, tell your friend, fuck you.
I don't want to be a buddy, but just want a little breakfast.
Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop! Welcome to another motherfucking episode of Breakfast Punx, a podcast about coffee, donuts, DIY punk, and pretty much anything else we want. Brought to you by Sham City Roasters and Deadbeat Donuts from Hastings. I'm Siobhan.
And I'm Dave.
And this is episode 8, where we are deep diving into the world of insane clown posse and juggalos, or juggalism, as we're calling it. Because why not? We'll get into that later.
We're also going to be discussing the Insane Clown Posse film Big Money Hustlers
from 2000. That is, you know, amazing.
And we're really going deep into this Juggalo shit today. So throughout the program, rather than drinking a coffee this episode, we're going to be drinking some Faygo, which is the official drink of the Insane Clown Posse, or unofficial drink of the Insane Clown Posse. I think
it's the unofficial drink, but it is. They have very few things that are to do with them, but they're very keen on them.
This is very important,
and they're very keen on this fizzy drink.
We're going to be We've got different flavours, which we'll be drinking throughout the episode,
whoop, whoop.
And probably getting fuller and fuller of sugar, being that this one can has 74% of the total sugars
Christ.
that each of us are allowed in any given day. So we're going to start with a delicious black cherry.
Oh, that sounds alright.
It says it's got some natural flavours in it.
No, it hasn't. It's got red 40 and blue 1. Which, I don't know what fruit those come from.
Well, 0 grams of fat.
Oh, so that's what it's about.
That's the sound of... Oh, my Christ. It's like...
Oh, it's bright pink.
It's luminous pink. Oh, actually...
it
looks like Ribena. But
Ribena's not very good.
No, it's not very good, is it? Let's see how we go.
Oh, it smells like sweets.
Oh my god, it does.
Are you ready?
You ready?
Chin chin. Actually, it smells like it's going to be alcoholic, but it's just
whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop. Oh, it's actually.
It's all right.
Well, do you know what? I could even think this was juice. It's not.
It does just taste like fizzy Ribena.
Mm.
That's quite. I was expecting something far sugarier than.
I think once we get onto the other flavours, I've seen what they are in our fridge, and they look disgusting. So. As well as Faygo, the official drink of the Insane Clown Posse. We are also eating I looked up what Juggalo food was.
By eating, you mean eaten as
We've
well.
eaten, and I feel very sick.
Yeah, we're not doing too well.
So when we looked up what... we'll get into all of the Juggalo stuff later, but they have this gathering, which is basically like a big carnival, where they serve loads of food. And that's pretty much the only food I could find related to Juggalos. So it's all like carnival food, so we made some vegan corn dogs. And they were really great, I feel quite sick now.
Yeah,
We've eaten quite a lot of bad sausage for breakfast. Yeah. I don't know if that's
I don't think there was quite enough sugar in them, so I'm glad we're getting the Faygo to even ourselves out a little bit. We got all the fat, now we're getting 0 grams of fat, but plenty of sugar.
Oh, gosh. If I throw up mid-episode, I apologise to everyone.
I think it'll be very appropriate for this Juggalism episode. We're going to start with some music anyway, not Juggalo music.
No Juggalo music.
We won't actually be playing any of that at all. We're going to stick with our usual palette. And we're going to kick off with a song from Harker, who are from Brighton. This song is called The Beast Must Die, and it's from their forthcoming album, which is coming out on the 23rd of April. It's coming up through a bunch of labels: Wiretap, Disconnect, Shield, and Fixing a Hole. And you can pre-order it now from their Bandcamp or from their website. Check out Harker, they're fucking amazing. We've had them in Hastings a couple of times and they're always really good live. And this album sounds fucking banging. They sent me 2 songs and I just couldn't decide which one to put on. So in the end I just went for this one because it was a fucking banger. So this is The Beast Must Die by Harker. Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop.
this Thursday.
Breaking news is part of this job.
You are fake news. This is what's happening in your world tonight. It's fucking news.
So my little first bit of news this week.
Not Juggalo.
Yeah, by the way, news is going to be Juggalo free for this little part of the episode. If you weren't keen on the Juggalos, you'll be okay.
If you came for the Juggalism, what you're going to get is not
nonsense.
At all. Yeah.
But we'll get back to it. So my first bit of news is very self-indulgent. The Deadbeat Donuts merch has all been ordered for everyone who did their pre-orders, and so I imagine that'll all be in the next couple of weeks, and I'll get it all posted out to you. Thank you so much, everyone who has ordered t-shirts and the coffee. The coffee is going to be roasted fairly soon.
Well, whenever the t-shirts are ready.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Sorry.
give me the go-ahead and I'll do it.
But yeah, the coffee's going to be sent out when the t-shirts arrive. So coffee is still pre-order only, but you can still buy it. T-shirts I'll put back on sale once I've got my extras in.
And that coffee will be a continuation, right?
Yeah, we're going to carry on doing the coffee. So the idea is that for people who are buying donuts quite regularly or just locally, I can bring you coffee as well. We can always bring you coffee. We can always bring any Shamsi roasters.
But this is a special donut.
But now we've got donut
coffee.
shop blend. It's going to be very cool. So yeah, just a big thank you to everyone who's already ordered. It's really cool. I can't wait to see my t-shirts.
Cool. Well, I have a bit of Chicago news.
Of
bit
course.
Random, but I just found two bits of news that were both vaguely based out of...
Chicago the band?
No.
Aww.
Chicago the
What a
place.
shame.
Yeah, sorry. No, I should find some Chicago news, really. Somebody has just started releasing a load of videos on YouTube called the Fireside Tapes, which are videos that they made in the late 90s for the most part, although it looks like it might be going a bit further than that time-wise, from the Fireside Bowl in Chicago. And it's very late 90s emo heavy, but they're really great. They're really cool. They're lo-fi. It's just someone with their camcorder more or less, but they've come out really well. And there's loads of bands on there. Braid, The Promise Ring, The Get Up Kids, Unwound, Alkaline Trio.
Oh, stop it. It's
And
not that bad.
and there's a really good one from Los Crudos as well, which is a bit different music-wise from all the
You
other stuff
mentioned them
that's on
before in your documentaries one.
there. I mentioned Los Crudos very regularly,
I'm
dear.
sure you do, darling.
And then carrying on with a late 90s emo Chicago-specific news story.
That's quite a theme.
Yeah, well, whoop whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
The band Karate, who are a fucking brilliant but really difficult to describe band from Chicago in the late 90s, and they went through till like the mid-noughties, I think. They were on Southern Records, and they just got, or not just, I think a little while ago, they got all of the rights to all of their releases back themselves. So they're in the process of releasing them. They're all going up online at the moment. I think their first album and their first 7-inch are up on like Spotify and everything. I think there's plans for them to release all this stuff on vinyl as well. Karate were really, like I say, really difficult to describe, but they were kind of almost like a jazzy, almost a bit easy listening, but that doesn't do them justice at all, because it's like really interesting music with really amazing like vocal melodies over the top, really interesting lyrics and stuff. It's a guy called Jeff Farina whose sister is married to Ian McKay and is in the Evens and Kariki. That's about all I know.
I remember when we had the cafe playlist that I feel like is synonymous with sitting in the cafe now. The few songs that you had on there by Karate, I remember every time they came on, I was like, who is this? Because it was just nothing like the rest of the playlist. But yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
I really like it.
It's really weird stuff, but it's really interesting. It's definitely worth checking out. So just have a look. Karate on Spotify.
Nice. My next news story is wrestling related, because we don't seem to be able to pass by a pay-per-view of wrestling without mentioning it.
We're going to have to add wrestling to what this podcast is about. This rate.
Nor do we claim to be any knowledge of it. But, we're going to talk about Wrestlemania, which is the WWE's biggest event of the year. It's their biggest pay-per-view. And usually it would have their huge fan base turn up for it, and it would be like mega, mega, mega huge. And yeah, this last year they didn't have any fans at all. It was this kind of weird, closed, they pre-filmed loads of things. It wasn't much of a live event as much as it would normally be. Whereas this year, it was the first live event in America to have
I think it's
the fans back in.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's the
in the
first
world?
sporting event of... I'm not sure in the world. Well, definitely not in the world because Australia's been open for a while, isn't it? Like, I've seen
yeah,
other
that's
things.
true.
So, but I think in America, I think it's the first. I don't know if it's the first big sporting
event
event.
to have people back,
Really?
or biggest like crowds, I guess. They had 25,000 fans back in the stadium.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. It didn't appear like anyone was socially distancing. Really.
Not quite. No.
They did have masks on, although a lot of them didn't when they went to the crowd, or at least they didn't have them on properly. And yeah, it was really hard to see because the crowd was kind of blacked out a bit. Like the lights, weren't really on, and I don't know whether that was just because of the stadium. But I initially thought it was because there was only like a handful of people at the front, and they just like made the rest of it dark to make people presume that there was people there. But there definitely were people there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe they knew that most people probably wouldn't be wearing masks, and they didn't want to get told off. I'm not really
those
sure.
silly buggers in the
Silly
buggers
buggers.
in the dark. I don't know.
But yeah, it was strange to watch. I thought in that context, because on the one hand you would think it was like definitely what they were going on about. Like they had the owner came out at the start and was like, "Oh, it's so brilliant to have all you fans back," and it was all about over
His
the top.
face. Sorry, he's had some funny old work done. Anyway.
But despite that, it was almost like they didn't really show the crowd very much. So having watched wrestling for quite a while now with barely any crowd, like with AEW, we've talked about this before, sadly enough, they've always had like their wrestlers at the side of the ring, like making a noise and stuff.
And they've had minimal crowd back for a little while now, but like 500 people kind of thing, spread out really sparsely.
But what I mean is this didn't feel any different to just having some wrestlers at the ring. Really, it did a bit. That's a bit unfair.
I think it did, in as much as I don't know. It was weird. There's this one fan that is in every single. If you've ever watched any WWE match, he is smack centre every time. He's a bearded chap in a green t-shirt and a cap, and he's always there. So if you've watched any match, you know who I'm talking
Siobhan
about.
is obsessed about what he does with his life.
He must have money.
He must have
is
money.
At every
It's
single
perfectly possible.
Raw and SmackDown match
possible that
and
he's
pay-per-view,
like a banker
and
or
he is
something.
paying for the middle seat on that side of the ring where the camera is. He must be loaded.
There's more than one, isn't there? There's another.
Well, no, the other person's not there anymore.
No, but there used to be another one, but there is another one who I don't think we see all that much, but he dresses as a clown. He's not a juggler, I must say. He used to go out with Mick Foley's daughter.
What?
I think
How do
that's
you know
true.
this?
I know, it's a really weird thing I read. I can't tell you anything else. His name is definitely someone the clown. I'm really pretty sure that he's not a juggalo, but he is always at these events. And every now and again, if they like go into the crowd or something, or they have a fight you sometimes see him. He's obviously not got as much money as the man with the green t-shirt.
Oh, he's not at the front.
But he's still got a lot of money because he's like four.
Well, he's at
back or
everyone.
something.
I mean, that costs some money. Speaking of money, the
money, motherfucker.
Money, motherfucker. No,
Whoop, whoop.
one of the wrestlers on the second night, Randy Orton, who's really, really, really one of the longer serving wrestlers, and he's actually genuinely really good, had to pay $20,000 dollars for all of his family to be able to watch him.
Really?
Because they didn't give him any free tickets. Which
I'm sure he's got
it's fine. Yeah, I was about to
$20,000,
say, he's got the money, but yeah, that's one of the news stories I saw come out about WrestleMania today.
That's bonkers. Is that because did they not allow family backstage? I suppose because of COVID.
But it's not even backstage.
No. I more mean like. If they're gonna let wrestlers' families in, I suppose they wouldn't just be sitting in the audience.
Oh yeah, no,
probably,
that's
would
true.
they?
You can't have them all there.
That's
But for
weird.
whatever reason, he wanted them to be there, so there's only like 4
I don't
or
know
5
why,
of them.
because his match was a crock of shit.
Yeah, his match was really bad.
So he had a match with this guy Bray Wyatt, who's kind of like a horror character, and he has a friend with him called Alexa Bliss, who used to be kind of like a cheerleader type of person. And
Yeah,
now,
she used to be like bratty, but really good.
yeah, she's great, but
Yeah.
but they've now made her into this sort of hot topic goth girl who
Follows them
sometimes
around.
vomits black goo for some reason. But I quite like that sort of shit. It's like really, they showed a bunch of stuff that they've been doing on TV in the run up to it, and it's obviously like they've been doing it proper like a horror movie.
Yeah.
But the match,
Really
the idea
bad.
of this guy Bray Wyatt is that he can't be hurt by anything. So people, hit him with a car or something, and then he just gets back up because he's supernatural
Yeah,
or whatever.
and the preamble to this was that he was set on fire.
Yeah.
So Randy Orton thought he had like died.
Yeah.
Well, not died, but like And then he came back to life for this match, and then shed all of his. He comes out with like burns on him.
That's it. And they CGI'd him walking through a corridor, and then he suddenly didn't have burns on him.
Yeah,
that
was really shit.
But yeah, so he's supposed to be unstoppable. And basically, what happened was the woman that he came out with, they had a big like weird. It was really cool actually. They had a big like Jack in the Box thing that he came out of that they set up next to the ring. And she just appeared on it at one point, and she was like sat cross-legged, and she just had some black shit coming out of a little crown on her head. I don't know why, just like pouring down her face. And apparently, therefore, he couldn't continue with the match. And then the other guy just
staring at her.
Yeah, and the other guy just did his finishing maneuver, and then he won, and that was it.
Yeah. So
that was weird.
I mean, I haven't read all of this article, but apparently that decision was changed just a couple of days before, which I think is the theme of this WrestleMania, because I think a lot of
WWE full stop. Everything I ever read about WWE, it's like Raw was had started and they hadn't worked out who was going to be in the main event yet. And stuff. I'm not sure why. I think it's just because Vince McMahon is a lunatic.
Isn't it true to say there was a four-way tag team, women's tag team match on night one, and whoever won that was going to go for the women's tag team title on night two. Yeah. And they'd accidentally released a poster that showed one of the teams for for night two. So you already knew that those two women were going to go through.
But
so what they did is, they eliminated them first. Yeah. They were the first to get pinned on night one just because they'd made this cock up. But that just shows how like really quickly they'll swap about.
Yeah, I think it's just like a bit chaotic. I think it's because Vince McMahon is a 78-year-old man who's dementing.
Yeah, I was about to say it's
but he's also a like Donald Trump psychopath who just is in control of everybody and everything, and just can make people, jump if he says how high. No, it doesn't make sense, but you know. What I mean?
No, but it's so true. It's just like if he says it's going to be this way, then it's going to be that way.
Yeah,
which is a shame. Speaking of which, the amount of women that do not look like how they looked a year ago.
Yeah,
and I mean, you hear all this kind of like gossip about, certain people in WWE, i.e. Vince McMahon, asking women to have modifications done, but some of these women really, they just look completely different. It's quite sad.
Well, I think as well, we've got quite used to this. I would say it's not, it definitely is way more so with the women, but I think generally speaking in wrestling, we've got used to watching AEW, which I think we've said this before on this podcast, like they have much more normal looking human beings.
And they're more
and
safe.
And there's much less pressure on. I feel like there's a much more modern outlook on body image.
Yeah.
So whereas in WWE they've still got this crazy man that just likes
big boobed blonde women with massive fillers in their lips.
Yeah. But in fairness to WWE, that's not what everybody looks like anymore. It definitely was. I say in fairness, that's not the right word at all.
No.
But I remember when I used to watch it in the 90s and early noughties, it was like every woman they could have been the same woman because they were all just forced to have the same plastic surgery.
It's a bit more.
But whereas I do think there's a little. I suppose just like the modern world has caught up a tiny bit, but it's still not really caught up with him.
It's really divided in as much as someone has told him go and get these gnarly looking women. So you've got a real big divide between. There's this woman called Rhea Ripley. She's quite young, but she's tall and she is hench and she's really scary looking. Then you've got Nia Jax, who's massive. She's like a big Samoan lady. You've got Tamina, who's back, and she's quite big. And then you've got who was Nia Jax's partner? Who's that boxer?
Shayna Baszler,
who is scary as fuck looking.
Well, she was but it's interesting that because you're right about all of those people, but two of them are daughters of his mates.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why they've been allowed in,
yeah, true.
Nia Jax, not Nia Jax.
Shayna Baszler.
Shayna Baszler was an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Who I think was mates with Ronda Rousey, who they desperately wanted to be in WWE.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's why, but I do sort of think. I don't know. I don't think he's let them in because he's got any respect for them. I suppose is what I'm trying to say. I think he's let them in because for different reasons.
But in saying that, the upshot is all those four women that we've named won their matches or are part of winning matches, or are really respected.
Yeah.
So it is like the upshot is they are quite. The influence is going to be that strong women are going to be encouraged.
Yeah, totally.
But not necessarily by the man who's 70-something running that company.
Well, I think as well, because there's, and I don't really understand exactly this, but there's NXT, which is where a lot of those people came from, which is their kind of like small league.
Yeah.
The one that's like...
The build-up
Yeah,
place.
like when people first start there. And so Triple H is in charge of that. And I don't think Triple H is probably the nicest person in the world, but I think he's definitely much more forward-thinking as far as...
Teensiest
And you
bit.
can tell, if you look at NXT, it looks more like AEW,
Yeah.
like the type of people that they've got on there. I think it's very interesting when... I find myself saying, in fairness to WWE, they have changed. They've done this. Like, so they had the main event that was the first two black women, whoever...
to ever be in an event on WrestleMania.
And I found myself saying, oh, wow, isn't that
Isn't that
brilliant?
good?
But then, actually, in reality... Because it's not based on competition, this thing.
No.
It's based on just the whims of someone who says, oh, you're going to win and you're going to be in this
Yeah.
place on the card or whatever. And so actually I find myself saying, oh, God, yeah, but they have moved on a bit, haven't they? But
could've done
actually,
that ages ago.
in reality, it's all just fucking made up anyway, isn't it? Yeah, so...
Well, they've created their own racist culture in that
it's
respect.
it's like they're an extremely racist company who have done a
Finally.
tiny amount for like their own race relations by just making up a different storyline.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, do you pat someone on the back for that? I feel
Yeah.
like probably not, actually. And it's easy to get sucked into it a bit because
It is.
because as well the people themselves are obviously probably really cool people.
Yeah.
You want to be like, oh, it's so amazing for Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks to have headlined WrestleMania. This is incredible, and of course it is for them. But in a lot of ways, it's still all of the problems
Yeah.
that go alongside WWE specifically, but I think the wrestling world full stop.
Yeah.
You know, I remember like a few years ago, it was amazing that women headlined WrestleMania. That was like the big
But that was
thing.
only a couple of years
And
ago,
that wasn't
isn't
very
it?
long ago at all. But again, it's kind of like, well, they've only not headlined WrestleMania before because you haven't let them.
Yeah.
Because up until about 4 years before then, it was all just sort of like beauty queens who weren't really allowed to even learn how to wrestle, let alone
Exactly.
actually try and be competitive or sporty in any way.
I mean, they've only just got a women's tag team division.
Yeah,
Because they've only
well,
finally let enough women in to be able to do it.
But they haven't really
Well,
either.
no.
Because those tag teams were all just like people that have been clearly plonked together for no apparent reason.
true, yeah.
Just because it was like, oh, you're not on the card yet. You're mates with her, aren't you? You just become a tag team now.
Let's get a storyline going quick. Or
But
not.
there was no. There didn't appear to be any storylines to any of the matches, as far as I could tell.
No,
I'm
I
sure
mean-
we haven't watched it, so that's a bit unfair. but-
I don't know, some of the matches were good. The Bianca Belair one, I really liked that purely because she won the Royal Rumble, which means you get a chance at a title at WrestleMania, and then she won it. I just thought that was...
So you've kind of seen that story though as well. I
Well,
feel like
yeah,
it's
we have seen the story,
those
but
are the
it's-
only things we've seen. But I know.
But
what
it's
you mean.
equally how it's meant to go, because
yeah.
sometimes the winner of the Royal Rumble can be a bit of a joke, and you think, oh god, well, they've won that, but they're not going to win the title.
Yeah.
Whereas this was a bit more like, oh, who knows what's going to happen, and her match was really good.
I quite like the Kevin Owens Sami Zayn match.
That's interesting,
And
yeah.
I like well, again, I've not seen any of it live, but they showed a sort of
the build-up.
a build-up thing, and Sami Zayn's character is like a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
And he's really going for it. You can tell, and he's like, he looks a bit like
He looks
could be.
insane.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I thought their match itself was pretty good as well. But I think it's probably just because I like both of them. They're
Do you
sort of
like
big-
Sami Zayn? Do you have a soft spot since he picked you up to Less Than Jake when we saw them in Florida?
Yeah.
Dave is beaming with the memory of we went to Fest in Tampa, which is where a lot of the WWE stuff's based, isn't it?
That is where NXT is based, I guess.
And
So,
it's where
like,
it's where WrestleMania was this
Oh,
year
yeah.
in Tampa. And we were watching Les and Jake at pre-fest, and two things. Paige was there, who's one of the wrestlers from Norfolk, and Dave told me about her the day before. I hadn't watched WWE in years, and you were like, oh, someone from Norwich in it now. I was like, no way, amazing. And then we went to Fest, and
just
he was like,
sitting
she
on the
stood
bar.
right next to you. I was
Yeah.
like, you are kidding.
That was a little-
And then Les and Jake start playing, and there's a mosh pit or whatever, or it's not a mosh pit, is it? It's little dancey
we
times.
were skanking, we were
And all of a
bouncing.
sudden, Dave's been picked up and taken away by some man, and he comes back and he goes, "That was Sami Zayn." I was like, I don't know who that is at this point, but
Yeah, I was quite drunk. I can't pretend to remember it. I know, and I sort of remember it happening vaguely.
So I feel like I want to like Sami Zayn matches no matter what, but Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, their little friendship on-off thing has been quite nice to watch.
It's
in
so
the last
telling that these
7
sort
years.
of people all of these wrestlers are that we saw them all at less than Jake.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It
They're
tells
people of
an
a very
awful lot.
specific age who have very specific, teenage experiences.
Well, even Sami Zayn's entrance music is still this happy-go-lucky ska music,
Yeah.
even though he's like this conspiracy nut that's terrified of the company that's out to get him.
yeah, I feel
it
like
doesn't really work.
I think that's laziness on their part, isn't it? It's just like, well,
Yeah.
he's got his music already.
He's
don't
got
worry
his
about it.
music.
So, what did you think of it overall?
Overall, I feel like it was it was better than last year by some way. I enjoyed that no old wrestlers were brought out to do one move and win or lose a match,
that's
i.e.
true.
The
I didn't think of
Undertaker
that. Yeah.
or Goldberg,
Yeah.
because I am done with that.
And actually, they did have a few old wrestlers, but they were all just in like really, really shit. But they were all just in backstage skits and things like that.
Yeah, that's it. No one came in and did like a charity punch and then got knocked out or anything stupid, or won that way. What I would say is the kind of what would you call it, like the token nonsense. If it isn't now old wrestlers who should be dead, it was Latin American singers who for some reason now do wrestling moves. And I'm talking about Bad Bunny. That match was amazing.
Yeah, he was really, really good.
And it probably shouldn't have been as entertaining as it was. But it was amazing.
So, but I don't really know who Bad Bunny is, but
No, I
he's
haven't got a
apparently Latin America's biggest
selling
musical star, and
Yeah.
he raps. It doesn't sound good to me, but
It doesn't sound like any, but that's fine.
I've only listened to.
Well, he came out in Royal Rumble because he was the performer at Royal Rumble, and then someone smashed into his DJ's equipment, and so that was the build up to the storyline.
Smashed up his DJ's.
Oh,
equipment.
maybe. And so he got to do a big jump off of the top rope, and it was really good. And so then
We talked about that on the podcast.
We did talk
because we
about it.
compared it to Snoop Doggy Dogg's much worse jump.
Where you go, please don't die, Snoop Doggy Dogg. But anyway, then Bad Bunny gets to be in this tag team match with Damian Priest, who is wearing a fine outfit.
He's fabulous.
Of
I
some
don't
kind
know
of-
whether he knows that he's as fabulous as he is, because he looks like a really scary, muscly, tough man.
Carney, yeah.
But he is
Came out in the
fabulous.
most fabulous gay bondage
Oh, it's beautiful.
array on
Like
the top.
bright
Purple.
PVC trousers.
He looked amazing. But anyway, those two are in a match against Miz and John Morrison, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know who they are, to be honest. I know who Miz is, but I don't know who the other one is. And they let Bad Bunny do some seriously ridiculous jumps.
He was
and
almost the one who worked the most in that match. I
He
feel
did,
like.
and he
was in
sold it
ring.
the most.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
really sold it. He did. There's this move called the Canadian Destroyer, where it looks gnarly as fuck. It's like this weird. You grab each other, and it looks like someone does a backflip with someone else, and they land on their head. And it looks like if it goes wrong, you are going to absolutely screw yourself over. But we learned not that long ago via watching someone quite young doing it to someone very old on AEW. And they said, you just hold on and we'll do it. And basically, the person who looks like they're getting the move delivered to them is the one actually doing all the work.
Yeah.
And the person who looks like they've done the move hasn't had to do anything.
So it was in the AEW case. It was basically a 70-something-year-old man doing apparently
To like a 20-year-old
appeared that he was doing
muscly.
some sort of amazing
Yeah.
gymnastics, but actually he was just hanging on for dear life while the other guy kind of did it for him. Really.
But the amazing thing about that move is you can make someone who is not very good or very talented look like they're amazing and doing this horrible move. And that's what they did with Bad Bunny. And he sold it so well, and it was just so good. And I just thought, actually, even if you're not that bothered and you for some reason know who he is, it's worth a watch.
Yeah, I thought that was quite cool.
But yeah, how about you?
I mean, overall, I thought it was nice to see some fans back. Like I say, I felt that was a bit weirdly presented, but a couple of times it did sort of feel like, oh, that's so nice that actually it made it feel like the world was going back to normal, even if it was actually just WWE not really giving a shit about anyone's health and just doing
they haven't the whole time.
just trying to make some money. But I don't know. I think having watched AEW for a while, there's certain things that I do actually think WWE is maybe slightly better at. I mean, there's definitely production things that they're a lot better at. It's a bit like listening to Green Day in comparison to listening to the Kimberley Stakes. Like, it's almost too polished in so many ways. And so whilst I appreciate, like, for example, one thing that I did notice was I thought that the commentary was a lot better. Because I think AEW does not have a very good commentary.
No.
It has one guy that's kind of trying and is capable, and then it has a really old doddery man who I think is dementing, and another one who's really lovely and kind of nice, but doesn't really...
Well, it doesn't look that interesting.
Yeah, he just seems like a bored middle-aged man.
Yeah.
Middle-aged is being kind.
He's far older than that.
But the thing is that it's like the roughness in AEW that I think I kind of like a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's weird. I couldn't help but just compare the two. But the one thing that I definitely think, from what I could see, and like I said, I haven't watched any of the TV in the run-up, is that WWE, both their characters and their storyline, for the most part, were just so boring. And like even like there's like people in it that I quite like, but their characters are just like, I'm just a person, I'm just someone who wrestles.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You want a few people like that, but you need a, and that's why Bray Wyatt stood out so much.
Yeah.
Because he was doing all the Twizzy shit with his like black goo and his funny CGI and stuff. But it was like that was really the only moment where actually there was kind of like a big production.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
And I sort of thought, well, it's WrestleMania, like. I don't really like WWE, but I would watch WrestleMania because usually it's sort of this massive spectacle.
Yeah.
And I felt like this year was surely the opportunity to do a massive spectacle because there was people back.
Yeah.
They've had a year sitting around on their thumbs. I mean, I think part of the problem is that they've got rid of most of their crew.
Yeah,
they sacked them all as soon as COVID started. Which again, I mean, as a company, I think it's a despicable place, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
And I would never support it. We only watch WrestleMania because we can, accidentally get it for free.
Oh, yeah, not paying
some
for
sort
that.
of non-illegal means that I'm not going to disclose. But yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. Overall, I kind of enjoyed it. I think 2 nights was too much. I don't think, I'm not that big of so much of a fan of wrestling that I want to spend 4 hours on a Sunday and 4 hours on a Monday watching wrestling.
An awful lot.
And if we hadn't decided we were going to talk about it on this podcast, I probably wouldn't have bothered.
Yeah.
I probably would have just read the results and been underwhelmed, to be honest.
Speaking of underwhelmed, how many WrestleMania main events is Roman Reigns going to A, be in, and B, win? And still be really boring and unlikable.
I think what I've read about Roman Reigns, because we haven't watched it, but I have sort of kept up just flicking through the internet really. I think generally speaking, he's considered to have really improved vastly since he turned to a bad guy.
Yeah.
It suits him much better. He's got Paul Heyman as his manager, who's a really good kind of manager that's been around for years. And he's got his cousin who comes along with him who kind of gets involved with his match. And I thought he was really good. I thought the cousin played his role really well in that match. So I think that in fairness to Roman Reigns, we see him still as that person that they always wanted you to like but was too boring to like.
Yeah.
But actually I think he did his role of being just sort of like a muscly baddie who was always, was going to beat everybody up.
Yeah.
I thought he did that pretty well, and I think I didn't actually mind him winning, funnily enough. Partly because he was the youngest person by far in his match. I mean, he was going up against two people whose entire storylines were basically, this is our last chance.
Well, both of them have been medically retired for breaking their necks. Like Edge and Daniel Bryan have both broken their necks and both been told they will never wrestle again.
So just from the perspective of like passing the torch a little bit, at least I don't know how old he is. He must only be about 30 or something.
Yeah.
And so I mean, at
and
least
he's beaten leukemia twice in the last 5 years.
So no, I wasn't too bothered about him actually. To be honest, I thought he was all right. I didn't love it, but
now you put it like that, I can just about cope.
I also quite enjoyed their match. I was worried for Edge because every time there was a straight shot of his face, I thought he was a corpse. Because his entire face is just sunken in. I don't know what the fuck.
He's got no cheekbones.
Yeah. I'm really worried for him because he looks amazing in a way, but then he also sort of looks like maybe he does need a bit more fat on his body.
His skin's falling off.
Yeah, so he's kind of. I feel a little bit like we talked about Edge's body last time we talked about wrestling.
Edge.
So maybe we should move on. But, But in conclusion, WrestleMania was okay. I wouldn't probably rush out and watch it. Well, I'm gonna just go with one more story, which sort of does slightly touch on the Juggalo theme.
Oh yeah.
That we've done a very
that
poor
I promise
job
we're going back to for those who are keen.
So I read an article in which multiple psychological studies have supported an idea that your musical preferences are actually linked to your cognitive styles and the way you think and react to the world around us. And when I read this, I thought to myself, "Oh, this is brilliant. This is just going to show, like, if you're into, if you're into punk music, then you're going to be the best human." Not the case. It turns out that if to be very empathetic, you have to listen to mostly R&B and soft rock.
That is fucking horse shit.
And it says, and also
soft rock.
So they describe it as a Type E individual, soft rock and R&B, and you're also gentle, warm, and sensual.
No.
But if you
soft rock, what, like the Eagles? There's no one soft,
R&B
sensual.
and soft rock, I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
Sorry, my R&B, I just think like R. Kelly. I don't really know what.
He is not empathetic.
R. Kelly and the Eagles? Are you kidding? No, I don't know. I'm not very good at this.
So those who prefer intense dimension genres, this is so fucking psychological bullshit.
The person who made this is not an empathetic
No, this is multiple. So this is more than one person. People that prefer intense dimension genres such as heavy metal and hard rock tend to show a bias towards systemizing or logic-based thinking. So it's not an insult upon those of us who like heavier music. It just says that we're not very empathetic.
But we're logical.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you... I don't think I put punk... I have to say, I think punk isn't really heavy metal in the context of a psychological discussion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think people listen to heavy metal. I'm sure there's loads of overlap and we all listen to loads of different stuff. I mean, I like a little bit of soft rock.
I like an awful amount of soft rock.
We must be very empathetic.
But, maybe, I think I'm all of those things, apparently.
I mean, I'm sure that everyone is all of those things because the vast majority of people like a lot of different styles of music.
True.
So in that respect, these multiple psychological studies are a load of shit because I am empathetic and I do like heavy metal.
I am empathetic.
Fact.
Listen to me.
Whoop, fucking whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
The reason why I bring that up in the context of Juggalos is I'd have no idea what it means. If you like horrorcore rap, I don't think that you're empathetic or logical.
I think Juggalos maybe are empathetic. I think Insane Clown Posse are not. We'll get into that later.
That's a hot take. So I think that's probably enough classic news. And now it's time to move on to some Norfolk news. Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop. Whoop whoop, my Juggalos and Juggalettes.
Whoop whoop.
Whoop. I'm gonna...
Whoop.
Whoop. I don't fucking know. I don't know how to do this.
Can you say motherfucking money in Norfolk?
You got my motherfucking money?
You didn't really get the money bit.
Well, that's because that's how the Juggalettes talk. And I'm from Norfolk and no, it's all gone. It's all gone. So, as you can probably imagine, there ain't been much Juggalo news in the last 2 weeks in Norfolk. In fact,
I'm quite surprised by that. I'm surprised Yarmouth doesn't have a contingency of Juggalos and Juggalettes to report upon. Well,
I might not have found their website, but I ain't found no Juggalo evidence in Norfolk, full stop. Oh. Not in the news, not in the EDP news. So they're keeping quiet and they're obviously looking after each other and not causing a stir. So I thought I would just look up what clownings have been going on in Norfolk, and I was taken back to a story from 2013 when, I don't know if everyone remembers, when it was a thing to dress up as a clown and jump out at people. And it really took Kings Lynn by storm. So much so that the police had to make an announcement in November 2013. People in Norfolk town are being advised by police to ignore any clowns they might stumble across. Police have vowed to hunt down the clowns to offer them strong words of advice, although they have stressed that dressing up as a clown is not illegal.
Oh, well, tell the FBI that.
Urging townsfolk not to give the clowns the satisfaction of a reaction, police have said that is just what they're after. Ian Ashford from the fancy dress shop Castle Costumes in Kings Lynn.
What's Ian got?
Well, he's been quizzed because he's the local sharper. That's
he's been clowning.
Well,
he'd be clowning.
Well, he sell the outfits, you see. So obviously the police gone knocked on and said, "Oi, Gubbins, you've been selling those local pranksters."
That's not illegal either.
Well, no, but they got a statement from him. Poor bugger. He said. he had heard rumours there was a person going around dressed in a clown costume, and his statement is, well, no one's come in and bought a clown costume from us. I ain't had no one come in and buy one since Halloween. And it is November, so it ain't Ian Ashford back in 2013.
Hold off, November could potentially only be a couple of days after Halloween.
Do you think he was lying?
Well, no, but I think that someone could have quite easily bought a clown costume
At Halloween.
and then kept hold of it. I mean, what do you do in Norfolk with your Halloween outfits on the 1st of November?
Well,
Have they been decimated by the party the night before
I think
or
that's
something?
probably the case. It was probably the case. Well, I followed this up a little bit just to see if there's any other news articles.
Intrepid reporting.
2016, in Kings Lynn, would you fucking know it? They got the clowns back. A 15-year-old girl was chased by someone wearing a clown mask, prompting the police to appeal to the public for help in the latest string of clown craze incidents.
I mean, that actually sounds quite
He
unpleasant.
said, we had this problem with people dressing up as clowns before. And whilst people might think it's funny, I'd like to urge people not to do this, as it can cause alarm and distress.
Fair enough.
I mean, I've got one nicer clown news article. That's from 2020, so not everything in 2020 was that bad. The World Clown Association met in Lowestoft in 2020.
This world that they're talking
Just
about,
before
does
COVID.
it involve the entire world? Or is
Well,
it
that's
just
it.
people from the greater Norfolk
Clowns
area?
from across the globe have gathered in Lowestoft in February. God,
During COVID?
They must be
Oh,
fucking
pre-COVID,
no, it's just pre, isn't it? And they were talking about, because I think they dress up as clowns and they just
Well, they
go
probably
wandering.
do. If you went
No,
to the clown
no.
convention, you would definitely dress as a clown,
David,
right?
let me finish. And they as in they go out and like dress like it. They don't take this stuff off.
Is
They're
it like-
learning
is it
all
how they
sorts of
sexually,
tomfoolery from one another.
Is it how they sexually identify?
As a clown.
Is it that sort of a clown? I once went to a gig in Bristol, and we stayed in a weird hostel.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a weird hostel; it was a normal hostel, except that they were having a furry convention, and everybody apart from us were furries.
David.
And
what's
I'd
a
never
furry?
seen them before.
What's a furry?
People that sexually identify as animals,
Oh.
but they dress up in. When I say, I mean, they're almost like manga-looking animals. It's not like they don't think they're an actual fox. They think they're kind of like a cartoon fox. I might be getting that wrong. If there's any furries out there, I apologise if I'm getting this wrong.
I reckon there's some Norfolkians that reckon they're with a furry, but it's just an excuse. You know
Wait,
what I'm saying?
No. Oh, you mean they're fucking sheep and things? Or do you mean their husbands look like cows?
I think I was trying to go with the former, but
Oh, okay.
I wasn't that funny.
It wasn't clear.
No.
Or maybe it wasn't. It wasn't clear to me. Well, I don't know why I started telling you about these furries, but it's what I imagine the clown. That's why. It's what I imagine the clown thing to be like.
I can imagine they
Like
have
a load of
old...
sexy clowns.
Oh no, they don't. Oh, David, they take it very seriously. They're not very sexy, I would say. Although they are galloping
sounds
down
boring.
the. No, they're having a nice time. They said all the reaction we've had has been positive. We just don't feel any negativity. Hear this, David.
Well, if you were a clown, you
People,
shouldn't.
hear this. People are more scared of bananas than they are of clowns. And may I say,
I second that.
for the record, David is terrified of bananas. So
That's I'm 100%, and I'm not that fond of clowns. Oh no, I have a weird love-hate relationship with clowns.
actually,
I'd like to
you've
be a
always
clown, I
told
think.
me that you hated clowns, and then one day you came running into the cafe and said, "Siobhan, there's a giant clown in the road, and I want to buy it."
It was
And I
nice
said,
though.
I thought you were terrified of clowns, and now it's on our wall.
Yeah,
And you've got it tattooed on your hand.
I don't claim to make sense.
Well, that was Norfolk News, apparently.
Should we play a song?
I don't really know what happened there.
Should we give everyone a break from us for a bit?
Yes, let's have a song. This is Max Motherfucker. Fucking brilliant name. Motherfucker. Sorry. Max Motherfucker.
Motherfucking money.
Motherfucking money.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop whoop. Sorry. We'll reserve Juggalism for after this. Sorry, Max. We're really ruining you. This is Max Motherfucker with Are We Alive? It's from their self-titled 7-inch released in December 2020. It is the singer from a band called Christmas who played Bexhill some years
Hayes
ago, and
played
they were
with
really
them.
good. Hayes played with them.
And
indeed.
and they've got an album that's
A new album
Just
out
come out, I
through TNS Records.
they're fucking great. But I love his solo 7-inch. But
He's from Germany.
yeah,
They're from Germany, aren't they?
Saarbrücken.
Saarbrücken. Sorry. anyone who heard
No,
that.
you don't have to say you've not learned anything from the Jugglers. You don't say sorry. You just say whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop!
This is for Juggalos and Juggalettes. Do not try this at home, and I hope you like it. Whoop, whoop! Ah, 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 fuck! This shit! Whoop, whoop! Oh, fuck! Fuck! Ah, fuck! Oh, my fucking...
Welcome back to the Breakfast Punx podcast.
Whoop whoop!
Whoop, whoop. We're gonna crack into our second can of Faygo now. This one's called Red Pop. It's a bit weird because the last one had Red 40.
Yeah.
This one's also only got Red 40, but it doesn't have Blue 1. So I suppose that's
it's
why
gonna be bright red
so it
when that
might be
comes
exactly
out.
the same. This one's got 140 calories. So it's 10
Ooh,
less.
slightly less. Is it still 75% of your daily
It's only
recommended?
2%. So if you're going to get involved in
Hello.
Faygoism and you're worried about your weight, I'd get the Red Pop, not the Black Cherry.
For those who are in Hastings, it's Hastings News and Wine opposite Prairie Meadow.
Yeah, the American
Go at
Sweet
it.
Shop.
Yeah.
I was amazed. Oh, so actually we should first tell this story quickly before I crack open this beautiful can of Faygo. We were walking down Queen's Road, which is the road that leads into Hastings town centre from more or less where we live. And these wonderful boys, they must have been young. I don't know where these boys hear about the
Yeah.
Insane Clown Posse, because they could have, I reckon they were teenagers. And one of them was just jumped out of a shop and he was on his phone ringing his mate up and he was going, mate, they've got Faygo, and we were just like, what the fuck?
You're making him sound more excited. He was more like it was serious.
Oh.
It was like, they've got Faygo. I repeat, they've got Faygo.
Was it?
Yeah, that's what he said.
I don't know. I remember him more.
I remember him saying,
I
"I
remember him
repeat."
in full clown makeup though, so I think that's
Oh,
just my,
there were you.
that's just my-
You've got a lovely delusional fantasy where everyone's. You see juggalos everywhere. I never see any.
I love.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, Faygo.
delicious Red Pop.
Oh, listen to it go.
To that.
I wonder
Oh,
what
it does
colour
have
it's gonna
fizz.
be.
The last one made a more... a bit of a fizz. I'll hold it up to the microphone.
What is that? I don't think...
Oh, this one's... Is this not the same colour? Oh, no, it's not the same colour.
No, that is...
So this one's really deep red.
This is... If anyone's ever had a dragon soup...
Oh, it is.
and
isn't
how
it?
artificial that looks.
Yeah, it does. It definitely...
This ain't no panda pop.
Yeah, no. I mean, it is... Oh, it says naturally and artificially flavoured.
Oh, the other one was just natural.
Oh, this one's strawberry. I didn't even realise.
Yeah, you're not going to enjoy it.
All right, ready?
Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop.
Oh, it's alright.
Yeah. It doesn't taste of very much considering how much fucking sugar's in it.
I mean, it just tastes of kind of weird sugar. That'll do.
Yeah, Red Pop.
You could put some booze in
Red
that.
Pop
That'd be
from
fine.
Faygo.
Red Pop.
So,
About time
why
to actually...
are we drinking all of this fucking Faygo?
Who are the Juggalos?
The reason we're drinking all of this Faygo is because of two human beings.
Oh, I feel like we're giving them...
All right, two clowns.
Yeah. Well, they are human beings.
So we're concentrating more on Juggalos today, I would say. But I think it's probably important to go back and sort of talk about. Juggalos are the fans of a band called the Insane Clown Posse. I'm sure most people are aware of that.
Well, I don't know, because
No?
I was aware as a kid. Like, I'm trying to remember where you first saw Juggalos. Because I'm not actually sure I can really remember. I think they got kind of mixed up in a world of Slipknot and Murder Dolls and all that kind of shit that happened when I was
Yeah.
about 14.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly sure that Insane Clown Posse kind of crept through around that awful end of nu metal in the like early 2000s. And that's where I think I saw them, and they very much just came and went, and I paid them very little attention.
Well, I think so.
But how about you?
So I own an Insane Clown Posse album.
Yeah, but that's recent. I saw you buy that.
Not really.
No?
No, you have not.
Have you always owned that?
Yes.
Oh.
So I can tell you exactly. I mean, I remember it really clearly. I read.
I had my face painted.
I was supping on Faygo.
I was at the
And I
front.
kept shouting "whoop whoop" at my nan, and she said. So
She said, "Motherfucker, where's my money?"
My money.
Sorry.
So this Faygo juice is so full
Whoop
of sugar.
whoop.
The last episode we were high on various medications. Now we're just high on fucking sugar.
In fairness, my corn dog illness has gone away, but
To be replaced by a Faygo illness.
yeah.
So I remember that I read an article probably in a mainstream metal magazine. It would have either been Kerrang or something similar.
Yeah.
About this horror-themed rap, like gangster rap. It would, I don't know exactly how it was described, but it would have probably been described something like that.
Yeah.
And I loved horror movies, and I loved, like, I was well into the Misfits and stuff. I liked a bit... horror punk is a lot of it's a load of shit. But I can imagine exactly why I would have read what Insane Clown Posse were completely out of context and thought, oh yeah, I'll check that out. That sounds alright. Because I quite like hip hop, and I really like horror movies, and it just sounded quite cool. And I don't know if it mentioned... I don't really know if there were Juggalos at this point, because it was... The album that I had is The Great Milenko, and that came out in 1997. So it must have been... I don't know, there might have been a delay for it coming out in the UK, but it would have been 97 or 98, for sure. And I just would have literally just gone to the HMV or whatever.
And then, please, Mr. HMV,
yeah.
can
Whoop,
I have...
whoop.
Whoop whoop, can I have Great Milenko? Whoop whoop.
Yeah, but not in a Norfolk accent.
Oh, alright.
And I can't say that I hated it when I first listened to it, but it also didn't last very long. It wasn't one that I looked... I've still got it. I've got the CD, I suppose.
No,
But, I mean, I doubt there was ever a resale value to it, in fairness. So that's how I first heard about it. And that's 1997. And I thought that was kind of... And maybe this is more from a UK perspective. I think that was the time when they were breaking, like, big.
Yeah.
When there was, like, a mainstream following
Well,
of
that's,
sorts
I mean,
for them. As it
all
were.
that kind of, like, crappy
Yeah, it was
metal
very
and-
much... It was the new metal era.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it's all happening.
Yeah, one of the things that I watched about The Gathering, which was like an advert for one of the years, the bands that were like lined up were just those exact bands that you're talking about. It was
Head PE,
Mushroom
isn't it?
Head PE,
Soulfly, did you
POD,
say?
Soulfly were like a
Yeah.
headliner, and oh god, there was a bunch of them that were like names that I'd heard of, but definitely wouldn't have heard. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But anyway, so it was all those sorts of really shit metal bands. It all
Yeah.
it all kind of goes hand in hand a little bit, I think. So the Insane Clown Posse, often abbreviated to ICP. Woo woo.
Whoop, whoop. Can I just... Sorry, and also... Before we get into this, just state
we're
for the
never going to
record,
start this. Really.
we are not fans of the Insane Clown Posse. We're only...
I'm OG 97, motherfucker.
As a rule, we're not exactly crazy fans, but this whole world of Juggalo stuff is quite interesting, and that's the only reason we've kind of delved into it.
Yeah, I think it's a really complex subject because there's a big difference between the Insane Clown Posse themselves and the things that they stand for and the various problematic aspects of them, both as human being and as musicians. And then
Their followers.
their followers, who also have a lot about them which is somewhat problematic to a lot of people, I think. And it's sort of... I don't know, there's just a real disconnect between the two, which I think is what we'll probably end up talking about.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so the Insane Clown Posse are a hip-hop duo, or a horror rap duo.
They
really.
call themselves horrorcore.
Horrorcore, that's it. Except they don't call themselves horror. So there's some confusing things here. They basically rename everything for themselves.
Yeah.
So they call what they make wicked shit.
Yeah.
Which I do think is a brilliant genre
Well,
of music.
horrorcore already exists because didn't they? I read somewhere Gravediggers,
Yeah.
who are a couple of members of Wu-Tang Clan,
Yeah.
who put clown paint on or skull paint on. They claim to be horrorcore artists.
There was a guy called Necro as well. That
Yes.
was like quite an early person who did
But
that
then
as well.
ICP come along and say, "Oh, we do something like that, but we call it wicked shit."
Yeah.
And
There is a
that's what we
slight
do.
difference, I think, in as much as Insane
It's
Clown Posse's
shit.
music is not as good.
No.
But it's also, there's a tongue-in-cheek element to some of it, although that's definitely not always
It's
there.
questionable.
But there is in there, from an overall perspective, there is an element of comedy involved with Insane Clown Posse
Yeah.
that I can say for 100% sure there's not in the case of
others.
Necro. I know
Yeah.
that much. I don't know enough horrorcore, but I mean, there's definitely a lot of people that take it very seriously. It's kind of like the difference almost between like a standard grindcore band who take themselves very seriously and like Anal Cunt,
Yeah.
who are very problematic for a lot of reasons,
Yeah.
but actually do have a bit of tongue in cheek, and there is
Yeah.
something there. Anyway, Insane Clown Posse were founded in Detroit in 1989. They were initially called the Inner City Posse, and they changed that after experiencing what sounds a little bit like a sort of...
Well, I think they were already worried that they sounded like a gang, which was quite funny because they don't. But which I think was one of the because there were gang problems then. So I think
Yeah.
people seem to think ICP really was something to be
was like
scared
a
of.
Detroit
But these are
gang,
two
sort of.
nerdy boys at school who were outcasts and they weren't anything of the sort. And so, but yeah, no, there was a weird story where I think what's he called? They're
Brian
both
and
called Joe, aren't they?
No,
In real life, they're both called Joe. Joe
I mean,
Bruce
let's-
and Joe Ulster.
yeah, but let's not try and stick to their real names.
Well, no, but that's what their names are prior to this event.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Basically, they're, I don't know, they must be about 14, 15, 16. And one of those ages. And they're at a house party or they're at something. Maybe they're just at school. I don't know where chips and dip might have been their lunch for that day. But basically, a bully took their chips and dip. And instead of getting sad about it, he just had a vision of a cloaked man on the stairs. And his idea from that was, oh, that must have been God. And him coming to me at this moment means that bully taking my chips and dip doesn't mean anything and that life's going to be okay. And from that moment, he calls it a vision, many may argue a hallucination.
Yeah.
They
Or
changed
just
their name.
Something he made up.
They changed their name
yeah.
to Insane Clown Posse and decide that they're going to... And this is what I quite like. They're going to own the fact they're outcasts.
Yeah.
And they're going to make it their thing. So I think one of the things was their mum used to have a really... One of their mums used to have a really shitty car and they used to be quite embarrassed of being driven to school in it. And they just decided, no, fuck it. Mum, make sure you drive us to school in that crappy beaten up car. I want everyone to see how rubbish we are because we own it. You can't tell me I'm shit if I already know I'm
Well, that
shit.
also comes down to this pop that we're thinking now. Like Faygo was or is just a really cheap. It's kind of like panda pop in the UK or something. but it was all they could afford. So as
Yeah.
a result, they made it like, this is our special drink and this is all that we
Everyone
drink.
go drink it.
And I think that's a definitely really important part of their story, is that they call them floobs, and I don't know if that's their term or if that's like an actual term that's used in America for sort of, I suppose, for want of a better description, like white trash type people.
Floobs and scrubs. I saw the word
scrubs,
scrubs as well.
And a lot of what the Insane Clown Posse sort of talk about in that context is that they came from really like bad backgrounds. Both of them had really poor upbringings, and they kind of owned that is their idea. And like for the Juggalos, who are often from a similar background, which is very presumptuous, and you can't say that about everybody, but I think I don't think that's completely unfair to say. That's obviously quite inspiring, because it's like two people that came from, and I suppose that's true of an awful lot of music, isn't it?
Yeah.
People that have worked their way up from nothing, people see themselves in that. I should say that we got a lot of the information that we're going to be talking about from a really good book called Juggalo Country, which is written by someone called Craven Rock. It's not his real name, but I don't know what his real name is. It's on Microcosm Publishing, and he's actually a punk, so it's sort of it's someone who went to the gathering of the Juggalos and just kind of hung out there for a weekend and then wrote a book about it. And that's it's a really good book. So some of the ideas that we're going to talk about from that.
So Insane Clown Posse come with a massive fan base. I don't know how it must have been a gradual build-up, or I'm not really sure. But they have a huge fan base, and they are called the Juggalos. I don't know if they've named themselves Juggalos,
I think it comes from their songs. I think they've been talking about all of this stuff, all of these words that like wicked shit and whoop whoop and Juggalos and all this stuff. I think it's comes from their music, and I suppose it's caught on over the course of time.
And something that we may mention a bit later about Insane Clown Posse is their music is very... It talks about being a big family. Family! They say family quite a lot like that.
They do. I say their music doesn't talk about... That's where one of the many... It does a little bit here and there, but where one of the many disconnects come in from Insane Clown Posse is most of their music is like standard horror-based gangster rap. It's all, and there's like, it's really problematic. You know, like the words that they use, the songs are all about killing people and doing all of this, like unpleasant things to people. They're really like misogynistic, really homophobic, and yet Juggalo culture is all about loving each other and accepting everybody, and it's there's definitely a lot of areas of it that are really misogynistic. I'd say I'm probably very homophobic actually, although I think that's changing over time to some extent, but it's difficult to say that from an outsider's perspective, but that's certainly the sort of impression that we've got from kind of researching all of this stuff. But there's a real disconnect between the words that they say on their records. Like, there's a few of their songs that are really specifically about this stuff. There are definitely some songs that are about, like, this is our song about the, gathering of the Juggalos and how we love each other. And when they were made a gang, they made that song about if we were a gang, we would do all of this horrible stuff that we don't really do. And so there are the occasional songs here and there that are kind of more specific, and I think as time's gone on they've probably done more and more songs that, but definitely like the original batch of songs. So the Insane Clown Posse, when they started, they set up this storyline almost, although I don't really see any story in it. Basically they're just collections of songs about killing and murdering people, but they've each got a different Joker themed character on them, and they do work up to the last album, which is something that I think a lot of people heard about at the time when it happened, was that it all turned out to sort of be a religious thing, and they said that you should follow God, which I think confused a lot of people. But then even since then, like, their message is so bizarre, because it's kind of like, we believe in God, but we don't really believe in all the things that supposedly God said. Like, we don't believe in what you all call sinning, so we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, we can basically do what we want.
But also, the songs themselves don't have anything to do with spirituality. I mean, they do here or there, but for the most part, their songs are about murdering people, getting laid, Sort of, and then like occasionally, and again, the other thing that they're particularly famous for in the modern times is that song "Miracles," which is all about how they don't understand how scientific things work, and that caught on because everyone thought it
magnets.
was hilarious.
How do they work? Well, I've got a couple of things written down. So, Violent J had a vision of spirits, clowns, and ninjas, and spread the word of the Dark Carnival and the afterlife of the Juggalos, and that's what it's about.
But it's not. What I'm saying is, it's not about.
I
that.
know. What I'm saying is they're encouraging this group, so it's kind of similar to a religion in as much as what they're saying is follow us about and be a juggalo and you'll have a great life. Because I think they saying live freely, live happily, don't be confined by your upbringing and your like poverty or whatever, and you'll all be fine. But it comes from a vision. I put that in quotations because he basically has loads of hallucinations about spirits and clowns and builds the entirety of Insane Clown Posse on that.
I mean, I also
like
think
all well people do.
I think it's also important to say that the only way to get, they call it Shangri-La. They call their heaven that they're going to get to Shangri-La. And the only way that you can do all of these things that you've just described in sort of a way that sounds kind of like nice is by buying all of their merchandise. Yeah. You know, it's like, it's very much a top-down
it's
kind
Scientology.
There is, I mean, there's not, so it's interesting because you could compare it to a cult. It definitely isn't a cult in the context of how I think most people would view them. But it definitely is a way for them to sell their shit.
Stuff. Yeah.
And I think one of the really problematic things about this, and again, this is like a bit presumptuous to say, but generally speaking, most of their fans come from a very poor background. And there is something quite unpleasant about their sales tactics. Because when you look into it, so for example, there's a few things that I've noticed. One is that most of their albums, they boast a lot about how, like, in a world of where digital media is taken over, they still sell hundreds of thousands of CDs. But they do that partly because, I don't know, because they just release them on CDs and they've got this rabid following. But also they release like 3 or 4 different versions of every album with slightly different covers. And they do all of that sort of stuff. And one of the things it talks a lot about in the book is that everybody at the gathering of the Juggalos has to wear their clothing line, which is called Hatchet Man clothing. And it's all exactly what you would expect. Very big shorts, very big sort of garish T-shirts. And he says, like, anybody not wearing hatchet gear at the gathering kind of gets, like, told off for it and stuff. Yeah. So you've got, like... And there's 20,000 people at the gathering of the Juggalos. So, I mean, if they're all doing that, that's literally how these people are making their money. But the sad thing is that these are the same people that are literally... I mean, it says in the book, again, at the gathering, and you see this in a lot of the films that people have made, like, people are literally, like, selling off all their belongings just to be able to afford to come home from the place. Yeah. Which is quite a romantic idea in a way. It's like they love this band so much that they've just sort of... They've got there by hook or by crook, and that, you know, and they've spent all of their money like just having a good time. It's really nice in a way, but on the other hand, it's so weirdly corporate and so weirdly. Yeah. And I do think like their sales tactics might compare somewhat to Scientology.
Yeah, for sure. It's not pleasant.
And so, I mean, I suppose that brings us to like the Juggalos themselves. In the book that we read. The guy kind of chats with an awful lot of people, and actually, weirdly, also in some of the there's a lot of people that have gone to the gathering of the Juggalos and made little TV shows about it. Oh yeah, and like, you know, little YouTube clips and stuff. And actually, some of the people, one person particularly, this guy called Fuckstick. He seems to pop up in a lot of them. Fuckstick. So he's pretty cool. He's got his face is just entirely. His face is like a big tribal tattoo. Yeah, he's pretty good. He's very well. And his name's Fuckstick. But generally, yeah, the impression that you get definitely from the book, and I think, is that these people are from very poor backgrounds. He uses a term that I don't think I'd ever really heard before of like rural poor. I suppose it's those people that he describes them as almost like these people that have just been forgotten about. Like, they live in the middle of nowhere. They have they've not had a good education. A lot of them don't have jobs. And I think I've seen a few things about when there was a big problem in America with OxyContin. I've seen a few films about it, and they often go to these places that are just like, they appear to be like nowhere towns. There's probably 1,000 people living there or something, and they're miles and miles and miles away from anywhere else. And loads of them are on, are on sort of prescription medication and stuff. And there's a lot of drug problems. There's a lot of alcohol problems. There's a lot of sort of social problems generally in these places. And like I say, it's not something that I've got any idea about really. So I can't really speak of it. But the guy in the book, he kind of came from that sort of a background, and he describes a lot of like, he can understand where a lot of these people come from. And I think one of the things that I find quite unpleasant about the media's view of juggalos is that, particularly in recent years, they're just sort of a group of people to laugh at. And when if you go on YouTube and just like type in the gathering of the Juggalos, say, there's loads of people that have gone, and they're just like these smart, posh, white people who've just gone in there to kind of ask them funny questions and stuff. And I feel like I think Vice did a relatively alright version of this, but I think they've done a lot of stuff. There's quite a mainstream, particularly after that Miracles video came out, and I understand it. Like it's hilarious, like particularly that thing, but. There does seem to be like a real discrimination against these people to me. Yeah. Like if you hear Juggalos, they're hilarious, but actually, that's how people view them. But I don't really think that that's a fair. I don't know. It just seems really discriminatory to me that it's just poor people that haven't had a very good education, and we're all yucking it up about how stupid they all are.
No, and it's not pleasant. But then one thing that book talks about, which I think is going to forever encourage it, is that Insane Clown Posse, I think there's some mention in the book where the main difference between this sort of gathering or group and like some cults is the leaders of some regular cults encourage you to be intelligent and to still pick them. Yeah. Whereas Insane Clown Posse, the whole point of them is to say, accept that you are uneducated, accept that you don't know any better, celebrate it, and then do not get any more intelligent. Yeah. And that's the whole point of the song Miracles. It's them at the marvel of things in science that they don't understand. Yeah. And the reason people laugh at them is because in that song they say, I don't care about how these things work. Yeah. I mean, it's so beyond me how magnets work, I don't understand anything, and they're celebrating it. And whilst there's something loving and accepting about it, and that's what you see a lot of in some of the documentaries we watched recently and in this book, the Juggalo culture is really loving and on the surface loving and accepting and celebratory of each other, but it's not encouraging you to think outside the box. That's why when Insane Clown Posse say you can only buy our music, you can only listen to this style of music. If you listen to something else, that's fine, but don't talk about it with us. It's encouraging a small-minded culture that, yes, whilst they're all at this festival once a year, which is the gathering of the Juggalos, it's all really lovely and you get to hang out with each other, but you go back to your lives where you are, very small-minded. You're probably closed off from other people because... the kind of things that you follow have encouraged you to stay that way. Yeah. And it means that you will forever end up being isolated. And if you're already isolated, already poor, already kind of being a bit mocked and laughed at, it stays that way. A lot of these people go back and have regular jobs, I'm sure, but a lot of them probably.
I think it's hard. It's hard not to. Yeah, when you talk about this sort of thing, it's like the majority. It's definitely not saying that everybody that's into the Insane Clown Posse is a poor white person. One of the things that's quite interesting in the book actually is that he says that he wrote the book at a time when loads of people going together in the Juggalos and taking like photos, like really artistic photos of all these people. And he said that when he went, he was expecting everybody to be white because everybody in every single picture is always white. It's always, always, always white people. And what he realised when he got there was actually, he said he reckoned about 20 to 30% of people weren't white. Yeah. But it's just that from the sort of bourgeoisie, artistic Vice photographer's perspective, they want to show these Juggalos to be a very specific thing.
This is the white, like almost redneck.
Here's a fat one and a skinny one. Yeah. And he said, well, actually, not everybody there is fat or skinny. Yeah. But that's how they're presented. Here's the naked girl. Yeah. Well, actually, not every girl is naked. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that a lot of it's about, because none of us are probably going to ever. you know, I would never. I don't think I'd ever go to the Gathering of the Juggalos because there's so many things I'd be uncomfortable with going there. But we'll never see it, and so you only see it through the eyes of these
white
middle class
privileged
people,
reporters. Yeah,
and of course they pick out all of the.
Well, the things that are different to them.
A certain viewpoint. It's not a genuine thing. And I think one of the really interesting things about the book is that he really tries to give quite a balanced opinion about it. And something else he does is because he's come from a punk background, he does compare it to the punk scene.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite interesting as well, because there are definitely overlaps, but then equally they couldn't be more different. And one of the things he was saying, which goes back to what you were saying about how the Insane Clown Posse are kind of telling all of their fans to stay where they are, whereas punk literally does the exact opposite of that. It says, you can do anything you want.
You can do it. I'm doing it, you do it.
And there aren't really any leaders. It's not like we all look at the Sex Pistols or something and think, no, you know, they're not, there is nothing like that.
Yeah.
There are people that use punk to sell things to you, and there are, you know, people involved in it that aren't necessarily, you know, 100% doing it for the good of us all, but it's a very different setup, I suppose. Yeah, I thought it was quite an interesting comparison. So I don't want to overly kind of present Juggalos as this really positive thing as such all the time, because there's definitely a lot of problematic aspects. But I think that those problematic aspects are really quite well documented. So I think for the most part, we all kind of know that these people are probably, you know, misogynistic and homophobic and all of those things. Yeah, so I'm only So I'm not saying. So I think it's important, because I think if you watch any of the videos, it's like there's certain things in it that are so to a sort of liberal eye appear so shocking.
What, you mean videos of the Gathering or their music videos?
Oh, I mean, the music videos, I'm talking about the Juggalos, not the band. The band are relatively reprehensible, I would say. Yeah. But the fans, there's a lot of things about them that I think if you just, as a left, well, I was going to say left lean, as an extreme left person walking into the Gathering of the Juggalos, I wouldn't be comfortable about the idea that there's a girl, titty shots for $1 or whatever. Yeah. And so you can pay her $1 and she'll show her your tits or whatever.
I would say it's really difficult, because I obviously do not agree with that whatsoever. But there's something about, there's this two-sidedness. There's this, everyone's accountable to each other. So because there's this weird small kind of community feel to the Gathering of the Juggalos, everyone is kind of looking after each other, and that's what everyone who's been there has said. They've said it really does feel like a family vibe. One of the things in the book is that there is minimal to none security, because it's all on private land. Yeah. So there's no
like
police.
A
Biker gang owns it. So no police are allowed to go there. So that means 20,000 people are at a festival and police aren't allowed to be there.
I don't think they have security either.
And they don't. The only security that there's there was for the Insane Clown Posse. That's the only one that anyone saw.
Which is quite telling.
Yeah, I know. They're a little bit above it.
I think Coolio might have had a big mouth.
Oh, Coolio was there. But yeah, so there's no security. So everyone's accountable to each other. So for a very problematic, everyone's very high, drunk, there's women getting their boobs out, there's men telling them to get their boobs out, there's lots and lots of there's bare knuckle fighting, which is encouraged, and then everyone's all love at the end, and yada yada yada. But there's loads of opportunities where things could go really wrong, and especially where the music, like, not that I think music equates to whatever, but the outside world would hear, oh look, all this music's about go stab each other, I wonder what their fans do. And it's not. Everyone's really accountable to each other. If someone screws up, everyone calls them out on it and says, "Oh, you don't do that." Yeah. And generally, all of the kind of things we've read about, you don't hear of any horror stories. But on the same token, as much as everyone's looking out for each other and everyone's happy and feeling included, there's this weird thing, especially with women, where women are just getting their boobs out and just being free and easy and naked for the most part. And what the women will say is that they feel empowered to do that. They feel that they can be whoever they want. It doesn't matter if they're not skinny or if they're not too big, or it doesn't matter what body shape they are. They can do whatever. And of course, everyone there is saying, yeah, you can do that. Yeah. But the flip side of that is they're also being they're being exploited
hard
because
to
there's
say.
men saying, you can be what you want, baby, take off your clothes,
Yeah,
and
of
everyone
course.
thinks you're fine, but also I've got a megaphone screaming to see your boobs. But then the women are saying that they don't mind. Look, it's really
But that's
confused.
where it's a problematic thing, and I think
really
I think
confused.
looking at it from the outside, it's really difficult for us to judge because
Yeah,
I think
we can't.
whatever opinion we may have doesn't actually really mean anything.
Yeah.
Because it's about whether those people are getting something out of this situation. I do definitely think a couple of things. One, what you were talking about how they sort of deal with each other independently. It is actually set up almost exactly like a sort of mutual aid anarchist collection of people and it almost it's like it's a bit like sort of Hakim Bey's idea of kind of like autonomous spaces. It's literally is an autonomous space in a way that I've got to say, as far as I'm aware, within the punk scene,
Nothing
we've
else
never
works.
managed to
No.
create
Did you see
anything
that
of the
Facebook group
sort.
that lasted 3 days?
Yeah, exactly.
And these guys can get together every year.
and so in that context, it's like it's quite an amazing place, but it's an amazing place where really problematic things happen.
Are accepted.
But there's another side to that, which is about like body shape and stuff, which I think it's a really I don't know what to do with it. You know, in my head, I don't know how to kind of work it out. But there's on the one hand, there's this real acceptance of people with lots of different body shapes. You know, like you say,
Yeah.
loads of people just walk around naked, and it doesn't matter whether you're big, you're small. You know what? Generally speaking, if you're a juggalo, you're accepted. So in that context, it's like if you were gay or if you were trans or whatever,
Yeah.
you're accepted. But then they have like a Miss Juggalette pageant where people do sexy dances and much more as well, by the sounds of it. Although, I mean, you know, people
It
are
depends
shoving
what
things
you-
in themselves and popping them out and all this sort of
Yeah.
stuff. And it's like, and the thing is that environment, and he describes this in the book, and you can obviously imagine, is just like this. It's a tent of men
Leering.
and screaming at girls to
Yeah.
do more and more like extreme
Yeah.
stuff, as it were. And so on the one hand, it's kind of like, oh, it's really amazing because they celebrate. You know, Miss Juggalette this year is like, not a normal body shape, but actually in reality,
But she put
it's
hot
really
dog up herself
problematic. Yeah,
and
exactly.
someone
And,
ate
sort
it.
of-
Like,
and she only
what?
did that because people were screaming at her to do it.
Exactly.
And you know, and it's so
But then
uncomfortable. But it's not for us to be comfortable or uncomfortable.
And it's
about
so
it. I suppose that's
hard
what I'm
because
trying
if
to
you ask that woman who won,
she's probably
she's
really
so
happy.
chuffed with
Yeah,
herself.
exactly.
But it's so confused and problematic.
But it's
But
and
it's
that's
set up
I
to
mean
be
it's
that
the
way.
very thing that I find really interesting about the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know whether it's worth mentioning at this point that one of the main reasons they came into the news in the last 5-6 years was when the FBI have now, I think it's still in place.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
They've designated the Juggalos, the term Juggalo, and the group that are called the Juggalos. They've designated them as a gang. They've classified them as a gang.
Yeah.
And this means that anyone who looks... Sorry, one thing we've actually not explained at any point is Insane Clown Posse have clown makeup.
Oh, well,
I don't think we've really actually said that at any point. And one thing Juggalos do, you can really obviously see them, apart from their like weird 90s nu metal clothing, is they've got their clown face paint on in daylight. Like you see it often. People who are really like embracing it. So anyway, it can be quite obvious if you are a Juggalo. Or if you identify
I think it's
as
very
that.
obvious if you're a juggalo.
Yeah, I think it is. It's
If you
fair to
dress,
say.
you know, if you get dressed up,
It's fair to say
it's
that
sort
it
of
would
like
be-
saying like if you're a cross punk, it's fairly obvious that you're
Yeah.
a cross punk.
So it's fairly obvious that you're a juggalo. So it's not something you have to write down or say when you join a job, by the way, I do this. It's not like a religion as such. But people are not getting employed. People are losing their jobs. Because the FBI is designating them a gang, people think these people who are just... Basically, the fans are like this all-inclusive, full of love, but listen to this ridiculous band that talk about murder and whatever, and have a face paint of a clown. They're now getting told that you're as dangerous as other gangs and that you're going to somehow lose privileges. People are getting fired from the army.
Someone lost their kid, they say. That's what I keep seeing that story where someone.
Yeah.
But
And was it, I think in 2017, there was the March on Washington.
yeah,
So basically the Juggalos decided that we're going to get together and we're going to go march down to the Capitol building and just say, actually, We're not a gang.
Mm.
Can you sort that out? Which they still haven't. They're still classified as a gang, to my knowledge.
Well, that march was quite interesting as well because it was the same day as a Make America Great Again march.
Yeah.
And I think it was something like, I don't know the exact numbers, I might get this totally wrong, but I think it was something like 6,000 Juggalos turned up.
Yeah.
And about 200 Make America Great Again.
Yeah.
And they were all in Washington. And but yeah, no, it's definitely still the case.
It's just,
which I think is absurd. I think
it is.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are classed as gangs that we just don't know about. That it's just as absurd. But you know, fuck.
It's just something that there's absolutely no basis for. But it's just another. I mean, I get feelings of Waco about it, in as much as it's a group of people that we just don't understand, that don't seem to be causing anyone a problem, but because we don't know anything about them, and then if you're like a white politician in the Capitol building and you hear
Someone
all this
dressed as a
music
clown.
about like fuck you, I'm gonna stab, because I mean the lyrics are purposefully vulgar and grotesque and ridiculous, and I don't have any place in enjoying it at all, but I mean I don't enjoy it, but that doesn't mean I think these people are genuinely going out there and stabbing people.
No.
But if you're a stupid white person in the Capitol building listening to this music and you don't know who they are and they're saying they're going to do all this with all these weapons they don't have, I mean, yeah, I get feelings of, haven't we been here before? You're scared of a group you don't know.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to do.
Unquestionably. And I feel as well, it's, again, this is where the discrimination comes in. If Juggalos were all middle class, you know,
With
educated
money.
people, then they would just be a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just my son dresses as a clown at the weekend. It's a bit of fun.
Yeah.
But because they're not, you know, because they're mostly coming from like poor backgrounds and they're sort of the underclass, as it were, in America, which I think is growing.
Yeah.
You know, they're really discriminated against, which I just think is, I don't know. It just, there's something about it that just.
It definitely it grinds something, doesn't it? Because as much as you read about all of the complications and there's so much I don't agree with within the group and things that I'm not comfortable with, but it's not for me to say if I'm comfortable or not.
Well, you can know. I mean, it is for you to say, but
I don't think any of the reasons that one is uncomfortable or looks upon it with any kind of "oh, that's not for me" doesn't mean that you should be classified as a gang and discriminated against in that way. Because these are people that are owning where they are, not seeking to better themselves, which is totally up to them. Why should you seek to do that, especially if it's out of your means, or especially if you don't care for it, if you're happy as you are? But that shouldn't be a reason to be encouraged. Like, other people shouldn't be encouraged, therefore, to be rude and horrible to you. Which, again, for the most part, they don't give a shit. It's just, for as long as they're classified as a gang, they appear to be something that they're not, but they're definitely interesting.
I should probably say that over the years there's been there's a handful of quite good potential things that have come out of this. Sorry to keep, again, I think we all know what the negatives are, so I'm just sort of concentrating on the good. One of them is that the one thing I will say about Insane Clown Posse is that they are very, very clearly anti-racist, and they do have songs. There's actually quite a good one called, I think it's called "Fuck Your Rebel Flag" or something. And it's not. It's probably the best song, but maybe it's just because I can get behind it. But and I do sort of think, to some extent, looking at the, again, kind of looking at the fans that they have, probably an anti-racist message going into those places in America is probably quite a good thing. Other than that, I don't get behind probably any other Insane Clown Posse lyric. To my knowledge.
No.
But within the Juggalos, there are various movements that seem to be going on. I think there's something called Juggalo Circus, which is a bunch of radical activists. They were very much behind the march on the Capitol, and it's a collection of Juggalos mixed with like radicals from, I think they're based in San Francisco, and so they're actually really taking on, trying to do like political work, which I think is quite interesting. There is a feminist Juggalo group.
Respect.
Yeah. So that's quite cool. They got Ron Jeremy fired from that, because he used to be
Yeah.
at all of the Gathering of the Juggalos, and he used to do the Miss Juggalo
The
pageant.
Juggalo pageant,
And
yeah.
he was
He was the encourager of
yeah.
do vulgar things, do more.
and so they actually got him fired, and they did listen, and they did actually, Insane Clown Posse or whoever's in control of the thing
Yeah.
did actually fire them. So I mean, there are some kind of like slightly forward-thinking things going on. I think if you look at the thing on its whole, though, it doesn't look very forward-thinking at all. And I do think that sorry, I keep saying this thing, but I do think it's because there is such a disconnect between the Insane Clown Posse themselves,
Yeah.
which is what, of course, everybody sees, really,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean, that's the thing that's being projected if anyone's going to see anything. And then these poor fucking people that just really like them.
Yeah.
And whilst you can question a little bit why they would like them, and you can question maybe some of their behaviours and stuff, it's the Insane Clown Posse that are they're the scumbags here.
They are the scumbags. But the thing is, it's hard. They've put out this message, which, for the most part, is lovely, and it's connected all of these people together. But then they're not a part of that anymore. So they're like, look, we're all poor and unprivileged together. Let's look after each other because everyone else is going to think you're shit. So don't connect with these shit people. Connect with each other and support each other and be a nice presence in the world. But also, we've earned loads of money.
And we're not poor
And you
anymore.
can only
Yeah.
buy our stuff. So we're going to keep getting really, really rich whilst you continue to be poor. But don't worry, we're still with you. You're still our family. But we're only at the Gathering of the Juggalo for a bit.
We're the only
Suck
ones
it.
with
The rest,
security
yeah,
guards.
we've got security, but the rest of you can literally do what you want.
Also, I think they're living out their dreams in a lot of ways. So this is another thing that I don't think we've really mentioned, is that one of the things that all of the parts of Juggalo culture is basically just all the shit that they like.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things, and it says this in the book, is that obviously they kind of got big when they were probably like late teens.
Yeah.
And so they, as a result, they've just lived this life since they were really young. And so they've, good on them, nor have I. Like, they've obviously never really grown up. And so all of the shit that they liked as kids, which is professional wrestling, which is Faygo, which I'm still buzzing off.
Boobs.
Ladies.
Ladies with boobs.
And just shit like, so I will talk about it in a little while. We're going to be covering one of their movies, and they've made these movies that, and they also really like ninjas, because they used to watch,
ninjas.
so they call everybody ninjas, and all of the Juggalos call each other Hey Ninja, and that's just because they really like kung fu films. So it's this.
They
kind
say
of like,
whoop whoop to each other, so that's how all Juggalos talk to each
Yeah.
other, which is why we've kept whooping.
Yeah.
But just in case anyone was wondering.
So it's this kind of thing where they've just hung on to all of these funny little interests that they've got,
Yeah.
which I quite like in a way, although that. I kind of respect that to some extent.
I like that there's no further thought to it, and it just is what it is. There's
Yeah.
something very wonderfully like, I don't need a reason. You can just do what you want.
Yeah.
But
Except, there is that. So that again,
But you
there's-
can't.
Yeah, there's
Now
this
you
double
follow
message,
me.
isn't
Yeah.
it? It's like you can do what you want, but you've got to do what we want.
yeah, we
know?
made it up in the first place based on just because we could.
Yeah.
But you can't.
Yeah.
Because you're not actually the same as us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's problematic. But I've really enjoyed the last 2 weeks of diving into Juggalo nonsense. I would encourage everyone to do it. There's a few things, we could probably put links in our little playlists.
Yeah, I'll put a load of stuff on the YouTube playlist,
Yeah.
which there's. So you found a really good thing, which was a guy from the BBC that went.
Yeah, and he did
had
it in a...
He had a good attitude.
Well, he had an attitude similar to the person who wrote Juggalo Country, and except that he's not really trying to dissect it intellectually the way that the guy who wrote Juggalo Country is. He's just going there to experience it, but in an empathetic way.
Yeah.
And he does, and he
must
spends about 30...
like soft rock and R&B.
but he spends about... he doesn't spend too long looking at the complications and the things he's not comfortable with, but he does make note of it.
Yeah.
But it is mostly just trying to understand it rather than to critique it, whereas the book understands and critiques.
Oh, I think as well.
But it is
Remember
worth
that the guy
watching.
who wrote the book is like he's like an anarchist. He's much more. I imagine that guy from the BBC was just sort of a normal dude.
He
that would
works
have
with
been-
Scott Mills on Radio 1.
So
I don't know what his
he'd be
name is.
uncomfortable with like really over the top sexism, but he wouldn't necessarily pick it apart as a sort of
No.
patriarchal
I think
society that's been created by
Well, he watched Twisted play, which is the other big Juggalo band, and I think his little mind was blown. He was like, God, this was the best thing. They've got big balloons.
Yeah.
And then they go to a phone
I'm
party.
going to be going home and listening to them when I get home.
One thing about it is you should definitely watch it because for some reason he's there about 2 minutes. His tour guide is a man in a bikini called Mankini. That's just his name.
He's in fairness, that guy seems like a fucking dude.
Oh, he's so nice.
Yeah,
I really liked him. And then within about 2 minutes, he goes, Mankini, why is everyone showing me their butthole? And he goes, well, it's the year of the butthole. And I'm like, oh, why? And he just goes, show me your butthole. And people literally spread their cheeks and show you their asshole.
Yeah. They have to pixelate out the...
not that it makes it any better, but all genders are getting very naked at this thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely exploitative to women, but you also see a lot of buttholes you don't want to see. Anyway, we'll put a link to that because there is a crappy version on YouTube. It's on BBC iPlayer if anyone has it, but it's on YouTube anyway.
But I'll put a bunch of the stuff that we've watched up.
Yeah.
And I will...
And the book's worth
I'll
it.
tell you what else I'll include. I'll include what we're going to be
Discussing
talking
next.
about in a minute after this next song, which is Big Money Hustlers, their film from 2000, but you'll have to wait to hear that.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like this conversation's been a bit more serious than people might have expected if they had any opinion on what a juggalo was. But it's been fun.
Yeah,
I've loved finding out about them.
Yeah. It has been. Sorry. One thing that I haven't enjoyed finding out about them, because one of the things that I thought to myself. So I read the book, and I was kind of watching a few things on YouTube and what have you. And then I thought I'm going to do a deep dive on this music, and I'm going to find the really good juggalo bands. I've got to say,
there aren't any.
I couldn't find a single song. I don't think.
There's one Twisted song I didn't hate.
So Twisted, I think, are definitely better. But I will say the Insane Clown Posse, particularly, well, like if you just do a search on YouTube, obviously it's their more recent stuff.
Yeah.
So that album that I've got, The Great Malenko, is all right. It's got a couple of good things on it. I don't mind it.
Yeah.
But everything they've done recently, like there was they do that shit. You know that.
They do a cover of Jump Around.
Oh, they do.
Get loony.
Right. Yeah, no, that's all right. But they do that one. There's that one that's
jump up like
really
a clown.
current, and one of them singing like Cher does on "Believe." You know, he's
What?
got. Have you not? We watched it together.
I don't remember it now.
Oh my god!
Oh, there's
just,
also there's one we listen to every Christmas.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. That's actually where this whole thing came from. We've told this story in such a fucking weird back-ass way. But yeah, so every Christmas.
Oh god.
The only time we've ever listened to the Insane Clown Posse is that one Christmas, when we first moved to Hastings, I think, we found the song Santa is a Fat Bitch and put it on our Christmas playlist. And now...
we listen to Insane Clown Posse every Christmas morning.
Every Christmas day.
Oh, God.
It's replaced the Phil Spector Christmas album.
You know that group that we've been really hard not to be rude about and we're trying to be really empathetic towards? Turns out... no. Faygo on Christmas Day?
Faygo on Christmas Day.
See you there. Let's play a song, and it won't be the Insane Clown Posse.
Although whoop whoop.
Although whoop 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 whoop. So this song is by a band called Attestor. The song is called Killing Machine. They are a band from Hastings, Brighton, Eastbourne. They're all this sort of way.
I think they're all along the coast between
all along
Hastings and
coast
Brighton.
down here. They're quite new in as much as they got together just before, quite a while before the pandemic.
Well,
but then they haven't been able to
play a gig yet, so
play.
I think it was it could. Have they played? They haven't played.
No, they haven't played. I think they got it all sorted just before the pandemic, and then they haven't been able to play. But they've got loads of gigs booked.
They are playing What's It Called Fest.
Hey! So this was just released on Bandcamp. They've got a new LP coming. They're just waiting for it to be pressed.
I think it's at the presses.
It's at the presses.
It takes forever to get vinyl pressed at the moment because of, I don't know, like COVID or Brexit or both.
All the shit things.
Yeah.
Well,
and
go
Toxic
on.
What's It are helping out with that release. So
nice one.
When it is done, we'll have it.
But you can go listen to it on Bandcamp now. Go get that downloaded. So this is Attestor with Killing Machine.
Action!
Pictures up.
Rolling!
Rolling.
It's the trash. It's the sweet, sweet trash.
To avoid fainting, keep repeating.
I love what I see.
Leave the auditorium. It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie.
So this episode's movie review is going to be Juggalo themed. But before we do so, we're going to crack into another Faygo.
The last Faygo of the fridge.
Faygo of the fridge. This one's Rock and Rye.
What the fuck is that?
I don't know, but it's 140 calories and it's 72% bar sugars. This one's got red 40 in it. Again, every single one's got red 40 in it.
Oh, I think this one's like cream soda, I think.
Are you ready?
Oh, God, no. Probably not.
That doesn't sound good. It smells like pudding.
Oh, I'm not going to enjoy...
No, it's the same colour as the last one.
They're all red.
They're all a bit red, aren't they? I thought one of... I had one in, when we were in LA. I had one, and I'm sure it was
orange.
I thought it was bright blue. Maybe I had two.
I think you did have two. You were very unwell.
Oh no, it's a bit. It's got a deeper colour.
Yeah.
I would say this one.
It smells like cola bottle. Not cola bottles. Cola cubes. Cola cubes.
Oh, it does.
Do you remember them?
That's what all my puddings smell like.
Oh, it tastes like vanilla. It tastes a bit like ice cream.
Oh, I don't mind that.
Oh, you can drink this.
Rock and Rye. All your Faygo needs.
Cream soda.
So that's our last Faygo of the day. And without further ado, we're going to move on to the review of the movie Big Money Hustlers from the year 2000.
Clown sex, insane violence, mind-blowing effects. Insane Clown Posse is Big Money Hustlers, starring Violent J, Shaggy 2 Dope, Jamie Madrox, and the Monoxide Child. The critics agree. Our movie's the Big Money Hustlers, straight to home video and in stores now.
The wicked clown will never die!
This movie's not rated and may be unsuitable for just about anyone.
And what is the plot to this film, you ask? We ask the very same question. But according to IMDb, it's New York City, and the crime lord Big Baby Sweets has got New York City around his finger. The NYPD is helpless, so the chief sends out for Sugar Bear, a 70s Dolomite-worshipping rhyming super cop from San Francisco, to stop Big Baby, his magic ninjas, Hack Benjamin, and his two sidekicks, Big Stank and Little Poot, along with the help of Harry Cox.
I don't remember a Hack Benjamin. The characters weren't clear in this.
No, I mean some of them are played by the same actor, and Hack Benjamin was the person who played Hack Benjamin, who was also Shaggy 2 Dope's, Violent J's brother.
Yeah.
He played a number of characters in this.
I think Violent J's brother might be in control of a lot of their business things.
He's also a wrestler.
Oh,
In
so maybe I'm wrong.
In
JCW.
yeah, so not a real wrestler. So yeah, loosely, it's like pretend blaxploitation style excuse of a film. I don't really know how to describe it any better than that. And Violent J is like the baddie who's asking where his money is, motherfucker. And Shaggy 2 Dope plays the 70s style cop who gets called in to help. And all he does is, everything he says is in the rhyme.
Yeah, that bit gets really
which is horrendous.
Yeah.
And it's about him trying to stop Violent J's gang.
The police officer that Shaggy 2 Dope goes up with is called Harry Cox, which is obviously Harry Cox.
Yeah,
that's the sort of level of humour that humour is humour the right word?
I mean, every week we say we're going to review a trash film, and every week we accidentally watch like a really good, like it's probably still technically trash, but it is really good. This is worse than Snake Out of Compton. Like this is bad.
Definitely is worse. I mean, Snake Out of Compton was good, but
this is the worst film we've watched so far, I think. Name something good about the film Big Money Hustlers.
So here's the thing with Big Money Hustlers. The first 20 minutes, which I thought was the first hour, I thought to myself, this is all right, this isn't too bad. It sort of reminded me of a few things. I thought that they actually did, to some extent, pushing it, but they did the sort of 70s grindhouse exploitation type of film. At times they did that quite well. They caught like a lot of the shots I thought really almost looked right. Yeah. And I actually found them slightly more charming than I was expecting.
Definitely. So Violent J is obviously, and we'll get on to the funding of this film and the ideas behind it in a minute, but he comes off really well.
Yeah.
In fact, so does the other one,
I
actually.
think the other one does too.
Yeah.
And so...
Oh, really well, sorry, is massively pushed. Please don't go watch this and then think Siobhan totally agrees with every choice made in this film. Because believe me, oh my God, I do not.
So if that had been at the first hour, and then there had only been about 10 minutes left,
So if the film was 30 minutes long,
no,
you'd
but I
like
expected it to be sort of a short film, but it was shortish, but it was like an hour and 40 or something. I kind of thought it was going to be like more like a music video, you know, like an hour or something.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like
feature length,
because it did remind me a little bit of the Guar films to some extent, and it was made, I think, probably on a similar sort of budget, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were influenced quite a lot by those Guar films when they made it, but maybe that's given. Guar have played The Gathering of the Juggalos, so they must know them.
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't be more different in some ways.
Yeah.
Similar in others, but but you know, so there was things about it that initially, but when I clicked the thing to check how much longer was left,
I saw you do that,
and when I saw that it was 20 minutes, I was quite flabbergasted, and honestly, at that point, I was lost. Then it's a lot of the same thing happening over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And if that same thing just happened once and then it finished, I would have probably thought, yeah, it's not the greatest film, but it was all right. But watching them do it over and over and over again, the humour level, if you can sort of call it that, is
immature at best.
Well, but it's not only that it's immature. I don't mind immature humour. It's that, like, one of the jokes was definitely that one of them said, "Is this your name?" And he said, "That's my name, don't wear it out." Like, that's the sort of...
Oh,
you know,
he
like,
did, yeah.
That's kind of like the level of... That's kind of like, here's a joke. I've written a really zinging script here.
Yeah.
I've got... And, like, there was... and just things like Harry Cox.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Someone might have been able to do it with charm, but these motherfuckers can't.
Well, and then they also have... there's a bit where Violent J is he's the gang leader and he's got his gang together, and there's a priest and there's a man who steals gold, and there's a woman who's got the most massive boobs, and he just goes round each one of them ridiculously slowly with the most stilted dialogue and goes, "And you," and then names them.
Yeah.
"And where's my money, motherfucker?" And then they do a little bit of a spiel about whether they have money or not, and then he either accepts the money or shoots them. And that's fine once or twice, but there's a table of 8 of them, and he goes to each one of them with the exact... Like, this whole scene takes about 30 minutes. It doesn't take that long, but it takes a really long time.
It feels like it. That's what I mean, though. It feels like it takes 30
to do
minutes, but...
absolutely very little. I think he ends up killing half of them anyway, so the next time
I think that the idea of that is that they're introducing the characters, and the frustrating thing about that is that to some of those characters, not all, but some of those characters, it's kind of like, oh, that's quite quirky. Like, the guy that steals gold is like covered, is so over the top.
He's painted gold
He's
as
painted
well.
gold, he's wearing like a gold hat, he's got these ridiculous rings that are bigger than his hands, and that's the sort of thing that reminded me of Guar. And it's like, if that was just like a tiny little snippet of the film, I'd be like, oh, that gold guy was quite fun.
Yeah,
cool. But you have to, they've obviously only got one set, I guess, with him in it. So he's always just sat on a chair, and then he basically just asks him where his money is. And I think they go back and do that whole scene again.
They do that scene again, but he's killed 3 of them the first time round, so it's a bit quicker. But yeah, that's sort of painful.
But so what do I like?
Misfits are in it.
That's one of the things that I wouldn't necessarily say that I like. But, yeah. So the 90s version of the Misfits with Michael Graves and Dr. Chudd is in it. But they're not. All they do is at one point. This is what I'm talking about with the humour. One of the really funny things that happens is that the police. Are you ready? They like donuts.
Oh, they do, don't
they? And they even go to a restaurant called Donut Hut. So that's the sort of level of how funny it is. And when they go to this place called Donut Hut, the fucking Misfits are just sitting there eating donuts and drinking coffee. And then and they don't do anything. Really.
No.
One of them throws a donut.
Yeah, the shitty policeman tries to look hard in front of the Misfits, so gets his gun out, And then the Misfits throw a donut at him, and he goes, "Oh no,"
No,
and that's it.
Yeah, but again, I think that was set up as like a really hilarious thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's, you know, I don't know, the Misfits are in it, it's quite cool, I suppose. There's a good bit where a gorilla holds up the donut hut. He comes in and he asks for all of his money. And so Shaggy Two Dope comes and does a DDT on him, and it just turns. And there's another bit where suddenly a wrestling ring appears, and they just have a wrestle for a while. That's with Mick Foley.
With Mick Foley, yeah. Who's Cactus Sack, because he can't call himself Cactus Jack.
Oh,
because Mick McMahon owns that name.
Well, no, so yeah, that is probably true, but actually, Cactus Sack came from a Insane Clown Posse video, in which at some point in the 90s they got a load of, before like loads of people had seen like Japanese death matches and stuff.
Oh yeah.
They got, I don't know if they got the rights or if they, I don't think they got any rights. I think they just
they ain't got no rights.
They got the videos of a bunch of, I think they were all Japanese, but if not, they were like all really independent like death matches and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they made up a pair of characters and they did fake commentary, and they named all. So this was long before anyone knew who Mick Foley was.
Oh,
and
really?
so his name was Cactus Jack in Japan, I guess. And so
Yeah.
they called him Cactus Sack because that's like the level of their hilarity.
Yeah.
And he was against like, I don't know, like probably a big guy who they called like fatty, fatty, fat, fat. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it would have been that like level of. And that became, I remember that video being around. I think that was before, I don't know if that probably wasn't before they got big. It must have been after I'd heard of them, but that video was kind of considered in the same way that like Jackass was considered funny once.
Oh, okay.
It's that kind of, I remember a lot of people going on about how hilarious they were pretending to like doing fake wrestling thing. But anyway, that's where Cactus Sack comes from.
I didn't know that. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Rudy Ray Moore is in it.
Of course, Dolomite.
So, I mean, he's dreadful in it, and he doesn't really do anything
And
of
he's not
any
in it for very
particular worth.
long.
No, well, yeah, yes. I don't think I like anything else about it. Oh,
No.
there's a very... We've talked a little bit... Sorry, oh God, I don't want to go too serious with fucking Big Money Hustlers. But there is quite... I think there's a bit in this film that really summed up my confusion about... misogyny within the Juggalo world.
I feel like this film doesn't confuse it. I think this film shows it for what it is.
Yeah, but there's just one little thing that it just shows the kind of weirdness of this whole thing. So, Shaggy Two Dope's character, which is like the main good guy, goes to a strip club, and there's a load of strippers stripping and doing whatever, and then a really heavy girl comes out and does a bit of a strip. His character, or whatever falls in love with this big girl, and they have this long sex scene.
24 hours.
24 hours.
There's 24 hours of crime going on whilst they're doing it.
But so, in some ways, if you took that just off, just as that's all that it was, you could sort of say, oh, that's quite interesting. You'd never see that in a Hollywood film.
Yeah.
You'd never see the main character, the sort of hero of the film, fall in love with
when there's all these skinny
girl.
women.
Yeah. He picks and so there's that. So that that's just kind of how the story goes. And if you just took that away from it, but whilst this is all going on, they do shit like there's one point where she falls over, and they do this kind of big gong sound as if like a tower's fallen over. There's one point where the baddie wants to try and he kills her. The baddie kills her in the end, and or the ninjas. They get some evil ninjas at one point.
Magic ninjas.
And so, what they do is they put a load of food between her bed and them to like get her in,
lure her
and
out.
then they. But so not only is that like obviously ridiculously horrible, but also when she's doing this, they do like Godzilla. Whenever she takes a step, they put this little sound effect on it. That's like boom, boom. So it's kind of like on the one hand, it's like the word. On the one hand, it's like this message, which is like. Our hero has fallen in love with this plus-size girl, and is in love with her. That's the love story, if there is one within this film. But then on the other hand, they just do these ridiculously like trite, insulting things about how she's a big girl.
Yeah.
And I do think there's something about that I just thought that just totally sums up everything I've kind of come to understand about these bloody juggalos. They do these things that if you look at them in one light, it's horribly like unpleasant.
Yeah.
And if you look at it in another light, it's like really empowering and really cool for them.
I mean, there is this one, that scene alone, I was like, is it not? Fair enough. But the scene where he's shooting his gang members, there's a woman who has absolutely ridiculous plus-size boobs.
She must be famous for
Well,
those
she's
boobs.
called
I don't know who
Clarissa
she
Cleavage
is.
in real life.
Okay,
2Ks.
of course she is.
Yeah.
2Ks.
Yeah. I mean, her and the woman who plays the plus-size stripper, they're both ex-porn stars.
Okay.
So...
I mean, I'm surprised.
No,
that I would
which is
think,
fine.
I would think the only people they could
But
get to act in
yeah,
their
it
film
kind of sums up their kind of maybe willingness to do this. But she has a perfectly good scene. She reads some dialogue, which he then follows with, "Oh, you're going to win an Oscar for that,"
Yeah.
straight to the camera, and you're like, okay, well, she's the only woman in it so far. And then she delivers her lines, and then they're about to move on past her, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, this is for you at home," and he just basically gives her a nod, and she shows her boobs for an elongated 5 seconds.
Yeah. And they like that bit so much, he's in the trailer.
And yeah, he comes back and he's like, "Don't say I didn't." He's saying directly down the camera, "Don't say I didn't give you anything."
I hate that
and
shit as well. He
as
does
soon
that
as
so
that
much.
happened, I was just like, I knew that you were misogynistic and awful, but that is disgraceful.
But I mean,
he does a lot of that.
He does a
down the
lot of that
camera.
shit where and there's like loads of bits, and I think they're supposed to be funny. Although it might actually just be that they're this bad, but I don't think it could be. Where he like forgets his lines, or like he's obviously reading them off the back of. He's holding like a gun at one point, and he's obviously reading lines.
Well, he
off
gets
the
a
gun.
piece of paper out and he puts it back in his pocket and then carries on.
But I think that's supposed to be a joke.
Yeah, I think he thinks he's hilarious.
But it
so
doesn't work.
another thing to say about the film is the company that financed the film gave them $250,000 to make it.
Which was a major record label, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
and then they ran out of money pretty quick, refused to give them any more money. So Violent J put the extra 100,000 in. But during that time, the extra week, 2 weeks that the crew was there, the record company refused to pay. So that money was to fund the film, but the crew didn't get paid for the last 2 weeks. But you can just take... So Violent J wrote the thing.
Yeah.
He wrote it in a month.
I thought he said
came
a
up with
week,
it.
actually.
Oh, was it a
I
week?
think
It might have been a week.
It certainly feels like it was written in a week.
It definitely... I don't know, but it took 2 months to film the entire thing, I think. And it is very much his kind of... He's the only one giving it some in the film, and you can tell he's very proud of it.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I think he's little. I think I prefer out of the two of them. He seems like the more psychopathic, and I think there's something about Shaggy Two Dope that although I'm sure he's just as unpleasant and probably is an awful man. There's something about him that I feel. I don't know. He feels like a little lost teenager sort of thing. And I don't know why that is, but he definitely in this. He seems like he's trying. He's trying.
I feel
his
like
best,
he's trying really
the other
hard.
guy seems ridiculously like overly confident, and he seems like he's a little boy that's been given his opportunity to sort of live his dream.
Yeah. Some of the other things that I quite enjoyed learning about this film. So obviously the Misfits are in it. Violent J has some real opinions of Jerry Only. So according to Violent J's audiobook Behind the Paint, Jerry Only, who appeared with the rest of them in the donut shop, became a nightmare on stage. He said all the rest of the band they were awesome and left on day one of filming. Jerry Only stayed and was somewhat of a nightmare, returning most shooting days with his grandmother's Italian meatball recipe day after day. He would suddenly start talking about classic rock gigs such as Sid Vicious and would begin rubbing your back as I was trying to eat lunch and totally weirding me out. He also had a stage mum-like presence for his son, who briefly appeared as an altar boy at the beginning, which Jay didn't understand, seeing it was a nothing non-speaking part. Jay said he was truly happy once Jerry Only was gone for good, because then he couldn't harass the other actors and himself anymore.
I get the impression that everyone's happy when Jerry Only leaves. I don't really. I mean, obviously, I love the Misfits, but
I love the idea of all the Misfits being there on day one. They all go home and Jerry Only sat there with his meatballs, touching everyone up, while his son's in one part. Like that's didn't happen.
His son ended up drumming for the Misfits, like
Oh, really?
like the last time before they reformed with Danzig and everything. I think he was the drummer on the last really shit Misfits album that he put out, where it was just him and Des Cadena and his son playing drums.
I mean, they're a complicated lot anyway, aren't they? But
well,
yeah,
I don't know if there's that much to say about Big Money Hustlers. Really, it's I wouldn't recommend it.
No.
Is that enough? Do you want to give it a score out of 10?
Ooh, I think it's a solid. I mean, I've watched it. I've wasted my life on it. Did I like any bit of it? No. Do you know what? It would be a 0. It was more watchable than I thought it was going to be, and so for that I will give it a somewhere between a 0.75 and a 1.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
You're getting involved in...
I mean, it's because if I give it a
points.
1 or a 1.5, then I feel like it's gone too high. So it's somewhere between 3/4 and a 1 out of 10.
So I've lost the way with these scores completely, and I can't remember
Oh, you
what I've
just
given
make them
other
up, doesn't
things.
matter.
No, I know, but I think Mission of Justice I might have given 1 to
What?
last time.
So good.
Did I imagine that?
I think you are an idiot if you did.
And I think this was probably
It's.
better than that.
You think this is better than Mission of Justice?
I think it had more things in it that I enjoyed.
Mission of Justice is way better. Way better. I'm offended.
All right, I'm just going to give it 1 because I think that's probably what it deserves. Really, it's available on YouTube if you ever wanted to watch it for any reason, but don't.
But no.
So we're going to move on from that. Whoop whoop.
Whoop
That's
whoop.
our last Juggalo content, so we should probably get one in. I'm going to play an old song now from the 90s. This is a band from the northeast of England called Servo. They were on Crackle Records, which was an amazing pop-punk label that is still actually operating in some way right now. I think they might even be releasing something quite soon, but they don't do nearly as much as they used to do. They used to release loads of really great 7-inches from loads of really good UK bands and a few international ones as well. This song is called What You Say. It's from a split 7-inch that came out on Snuffy Smile years and years ago. It is still available on a CD which is called Everything, which you can still get from Crackle. I think you can listen to it on Bandcamp as well, but it's not on Spotify, so I figured I was allowed to pick it, even though I've made these rules and I
You
can pick
can
whatever
pick
the
what
fuck
you
I
like.
want. But yeah, so this is Servo with What You Say.
One last time.
That whoop whoop took me by surprise.
I'm getting one last one in. I'm done now. I'm out.
So
Ninja out. Sorry.
So that was episode 8 of Breakfast Punx podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that all of our talk about Juggalos didn't put you off too much and that you got something out of it.
Go, if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and also our YouTube channel. Go to subscribe for that because we're going to put playlists up. Well, Dave has kindly put a playlist up for every episode. So any of the little tidbits that we might mention throughout, there's links to things on there.
This is going to have so much juggalism.
This is going to be quite
We've
painful.
really, we probably shouldn't have done this as a kind of...
But all the other ones are really
everything
good as
juggler
well. But yeah, make sure you're following on all those things. And of course, we're always here for feedback. So if you've got any shout outs or anything like that, or just anything, we like to hear from people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find us on Instagram at Breakfast Punx Podcast or email us shamcityroasters@gmail.com. And
I think that's it.
yeah.
Till next time.
Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop.
This Faygo, by the way,
It's getting a bit much.
it's fucking disgusting.
I mean, it's on my teeth.
It's got... Yeah, the first sip tasted alright, but...
I mean, we're 3 cans in and I feel very unwell.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So we're going to leave you with a song, as we always do. I think I'm not wrong in saying that this is going to be the heaviest music that we've played on this podcast yet. I'm pretty sure that's true. We've had a few heavy things, but I think this one might take the biscuit. It's by a fucking brilliant band called Victim Unit. They're from Reading. It's from their EP Hopeless Failure, which is out on Affair Records on a cassette. Came out last year. I absolutely fucking love this band. I really do. And I really would check out that EP. It's brilliant. It's up on Bandcamp. This song is called Crick, and we are going to leave you with it. And thank you so much for listening. And
That's a whoop whoop from me. Whoop whoop.
whoop whoop! Give me that money, motherfucker!
Peace out.